A bright sunny day. A mountainous area where there are almost no signs of life. Only occasionally green blades of grass are seen somewhere. A rabbit is sitting among such green blades of grass. He chews his treat, listening. The earth, the sky are reflected in his eyes. Suddenly his attention is attracted by something that is there in the sky. He raises his head up. A huge bird hovers among the clouds, with two people on its back. The bird descends lower, preparing to land. White bird feathers fly around. One person looks down at the ground. Finally, the bird finds itself on a solid surface. It folds its wings, and two people jump off its back to the ground. This is the most remote place in the western region of the 100,000 mountains. The man asks Kinren if he even knows where they are. The younger boy immediately replies that, of course, he knows about it, and then proudly proclaims that he wants to stay here and build his own sect. The old man just silently looks at the smug and determined Kinren. He tells Daddy that whoever becomes a core disciple of the Kingshuan sect has two choices. The first is to stay in the Kingshuan sect and become one of its elders in the future. The second is to get a golden seal, with which you can establish a sect alone. The old man added that he was very happy about the choice of the boy, and then wanted to add something else, but was interrupted by his student. The latter, accepting the wrapped object from the teacher's hands, said that he had already thought everything over carefully. He took into account several important points. Firstly, never to be an enemy of the Kingshuan sect. Secondly, the founder of the sect must necessarily preach and take into account the laws, as well as guide people to goodness and righteousness. Thirdly, if the sect collapses, it is necessary to immediately return the golden seal. The old man noticed that his teaching chose the region of the 100,000 mountains, the most remote. In the entire western region, there is no one around, only wild animals and poisonous swamps everywhere, and there are almost no plants and trees here. Is this place exactly a good choice for founding a sect? Is Kinren sure about this? He hastened to reassure his teacher, asking him not to worry and convincing him that he knows what he is doing. The teacher was a little more embarrassed, pointing at the student with his finger, but eventually gave up, deciding not to dissuade the young man from his idea anymore. He explained that Kinren just needed to put her energy and a drop of blood into the golden seal, then let her create the sect herself. He also told him to remember one important point. Well, being is the most important thing in the sect. At this point, the teacher finished with the instructions, finally deciding to leave the student to continue to cope on his own. The bird on which both had flown rose up again. Now taking with it only one, the teacher left the student who was standing and looking up. Kinren exhaled with relief, waiting for the moment when his teacher would fly away. He believed that the old man did not need to explain to him what kind of place it was, because he already knows everything perfectly well. However, the choice fell on this region because Kinren needed a place where he could practice on his own and improve his strength without the influence of the outside world. Now he glanced at the object that had been handed to him by the teacher. Is this the legendary heavenly boundary tablet that is used to create the golden seals of the spiritual treasure? He remembered that everyone who wants to found a sect must have this tablet, otherwise the sect will be in great trouble. According to the history book of the Kingshuan sect, 500 years ago, there was an unusually strong man who wanted to go against the heavens, and he forcibly opened the sect. Who would have thought that just 6 months after the opening of the sect, she experienced a catastrophe? The entire sect was wiped off the face of the earth, and her well-being was destroyed. It is also rumored that it was here, in the region of the 100,000 mountains, that man opened the sect by force. For this reason it is so dangerous here. Kinren paused, and then brought his finger to his teeth, biting until it bled. He dropped the droplets that appeared on the golden seal, lowering it to the ground. Some kind of energy began to form around. Kinren folded his hands in a gesture of greeting and introduced himself. He is the younger Kinren. He is here to found a sect, and it will be called the Huaxi sect. The golden seal rose higher and higher. It glowed and glittered. The task assigned to it was clear: Huaxi, to found a sect. In the ice palace, which was located in the middle of a mountainous area, a girl was sitting at a table by the window. A bright glow in the sky caught her attention. As he suddenly remembered the past, she was sitting by a tree. The young man standing next to her addressed her, "You," and promised that one day he would become a core disciple of the Kingshuan sect, become one of the masters, and then create his own sect. He said that he was thinking about the sect he would create in the future and wanted to call it the Huaxi sect. Now the girl who was thinking about it realized that Kinren had managed to do what he wanted, create his own sect. Meanwhile, the golden seal was working hard to create a sect. Kinren watched, wondering, is this the voice of heaven? Bright glowing stars were flying around him. The golden seal, on the base of which was written, "Golden Seal, Spiritual Treasure," hovered in the air. This year, Kinren wanted to touch the sky and reach out to the stars themselves. He stared at the seal in surprise. Does heaven know everything about him? Kinren is not from this world. He came to this world from Earth. When he first woke up in this world, he was already a disciple of the Kingshuan sect. Having learned then about the dangers and wonders of this world, he made a well-thought-out plan and eventually spent all his strength and time on training. Now, finally, he was able to become a core disciple of the Kingshuan sect and had the opportunity to develop independently. He never told anyone about it, but the golden seal was able to find out from somewhere. The voice that reached Kinren was saying that his blood did not belong to this world. The boy thought that this voice was in his head. He did not expect that the golden seal would find out that he was from another world, so he did not know what to do now and assumed that a catastrophe would happen now. But the voice continued to speak. Since the Huaxi sect master is from another world, the Huaxi sect can recruit disciples from the sect master's world. These words caused Kinren to be surprised. It also became known from the seal that all disciples from another world can create their own bodies, and after death, the souls of such disciples will be enclosed in a golden seal, and they can be resurrected after recreating the body. The voice asked if Kinren needed the seal's help with this. Kinren didn't understand what the seal meant. Even after she found out that he was from another world, nothing happened. It turns out that he will be able to call people into this world from his own world, as well as resurrect them. Kinren thought, once you can create your own body, die and be resurrected. In this case, he should make something like an online game out of the sect. And since the world he came from is Earth, the called students will definitely know about online games. He smiled at his own idea. It seemed beautiful. Kinren turned to the golden seal, asking for help to summon the disciples. He stated that he wants 100 beautiful students with big breasts. There was silence. Kinren looked at the seal, and then indignantly asked why she frowned. The voice answered him, the golden seal can only recruit players, but not select them. Kinren looked suspiciously at the interlocutor, and then asked what he had just said. He stammered out that he had heard everything. Kinren asked again, the seal just said players, right? He screamed that he immediately thought that the seal was some kind of strange, like this voice. And now she also knows about the players. The voice, having hardened, explained that the heavenly Tao is omniscient. Kinren still thought that there was something wrong with this seal. He assumed that it was also a person from another world, like himself, just this person is stronger. After that, he decided that it didn't matter, he just needed to follow his plan. The guy turned to the seal again, calling it the heavenly way. The seal immediately corrected him, saying that she was a golden seal, not a heavenly path. Kinren was looking at the seal, which was too annoying. The young man turned to the press again, asking for help to create an online game site on Earth, and then the press should go to Earth and recruit 100 nerds of online games. He repeated, asking if everything was clear, printing should pretend to be an online game in order to recruit students. The seal confirmed all that was said. A new place of conscription was opened, and the method of conscription was also established. Kinren was pleased, saying that, in his opinion, everything should work out for the seal. He himself was thinking that he would become like an NPC in the game, create an invincible army that could be resurrected endlessly, and if he also enters into an unequal agreement with them, he will be able to manage their lives at his discretion. With this agreement, it will be possible to forget about possible betrayal. He chuckled, believing that with gamers, his sect would definitely become the strongest on this continent. His face was beaming, his lips were smiling, he was determined. Earth 2031, a residential space where there are several apartments. In one of them there is a table on which there are a lot of things. Some guy is looking at some object, admiring it and saying that it is amazing. These words were directed at the VR helmet. The guy had already forgotten his existence. Now this man decided to play a little. He even had a couple of ideas. He put the helmet on his head, pressed the blue button that was in the forehead area. Now he will kill everyone in the form of a Gundam. A yellow piece of paper landed smoothly on the table. The guy took off his helmet and looked questioningly at this piece of paper. It was an entrance exam ticket. It was written in small print at the bottom, 100% virtual reality with incredible graphics. 100 people who pass the exam will get there for free. The guy who received this exam ticket. A table in the middle of his room with this sheet in his hands, repeating what was written, a free VR game for 100 seats to pass the test. He immediately sat down at the computer, saying that he was interested in this. Now he wanted to know the details. In the search bar of the browser, he typed the following, Fantasy VR, a game about cultivators. When he saw the search results, he was speechless for a second. What he saw disappointed him. He was indignant, saying that even his grandmother would have done better. He decided that this game was probably some kind of game. Otherwise it wouldn't have been given away for free. He flopped into bed, taking off his slippers on the move, deciding to go to bed and not waste time in vain. Later, he raised his head, turning back to the computer. Now he decided that maybe it wasn't a hoax at all. Anyway, he doesn't spend a penny, why not try? Now he was already lying on the bed with a helmet on, worrying about how uncomfortable this helmet was. He went into the game and was immediately surprised. It seemed to him that it was very good, and the textures were very realistic. The voice in the game welcomed the first beta player, informing that the game will use the appearance of a player from the real world. Players will also be able to search for clothes based on their appearance and parameters, and the default pain level is set to 5%. After completing the character setup, you will be able to enter the game, but before that you had to confirm your nickname. On the screen in front of him, you could select the parameters of the character. The guy looked thoughtfully at the screen that appeared next to him, and said that he had such an appearance which would not be particularly affected by weight loss. He shifted the slider in the direction of appearance, explaining that in any case he will be able to lose weight, but he will not be able to make a beautiful appearance by training alone. A voice in the game said that the confirmation and installation of the appearance of the character is taking place. The guy looked at himself and the result impressed him. It seemed to him that now he really looks much more beautiful. The nickname he chose was not occupied by someone, so the system asked if he really wanted to use Demon Flutist as a nickname. Smiling, the player enthusiastically confirmed the nickname. The actions are transferred to the hall of the Huaxi sect. Ken-ren was standing on the steps. Something began to form behind him. He turned around, addressing the player who had just arrived. The demon flutist who appeared on the territory of the sect stood with his mouth wide open. He looked around and concluded that this game is simply amazing and looks no worse than reality, and the pain level of 5% feels like a mosquito bite. Over time, more and more people began to appear on the territory of the Huaxi sect. Everyone was surprised at how realistic everything seemed here. Someone said that they seemed to be an isekai. One man noticed that this hall is very old and looks more like ruins, and later people noticed Ken-ren, mistaking him for an NPC. He smiled, because that's what he expected. The young man turned to the players, greeting them as disciples of the Huaxi sect. He also introduced himself, Ken-ren, master of the Huaxi sect. The crowd praised his appearance, saying that he looked like some kind of actor. Ken-ren asked everyone to look at the agreement. An agreement appeared before the players. They had questions about it. They used to agree with this in front of their monitors. But now what? Shouldn't they agree with the rules when they first enter the game? One man said that this agreement is more like a slave contract. The message from the system said that in order to start the game, you need to confirm the user's agreement on the rules of the game. Ken-ren watched and thought that it had finally started. He thought that this was just the beginning, and he was sure that what awaits these players in the future is worth this agreement. However, he thought that the players might not agree if they started reading the agreement in full. The crowd started talking again. Someone advised not to read into the agreement, because everyone will eventually agree anyway, because they will not be able to play without consent. Others agreed with this. Besides, they did not want to read this agreement. It would take too much time. Everyone immediately agreed. Someone remarked that this was to be expected from Brother Tong. Ken-ren looked at Brother Tong, saying that this guy clearly knows how to convince people. The young man thought that now he was one step closer to his goal. At first he chose this place because he didn't want to reveal that he was also from Earth. However, he did not expect that he would be able to recruit 100 students who also cannot die. Heaven itself is on his side. Now he was going to force these students to do something. It remained to decide what it would be. Remembering the hall, Ken-ren decided that the first thing to do was to restore it, because free labor should not be wasted. The head of the sect turned to the disciples, preparing to announce his decision. The players listened impatiently to what he would say. What he had decided, someone hoped that now, finally, a fight with monsters was waiting for them. One person in the crowd said that usually the first task in such games is killing a chicken, and the second hoped that in this game they would not just kill a chicken. Ken-ren looked at his students speechlessly as they talked incessantly about killing monsters. Everyone expressed their ideas and so on. The head's face frowned. He thought that even if they were all his students, there were still too many of them. Despite the fact that they accepted the agreement that they could not betray him, he allowed them to leave at any time. In addition, they can also opt out of the game. They shouldn't waste their time if they don't want to play. Ken-ren coughed, urging his students to be silent because it was too noisy. He repeated what he had said before about the decision he had made. He told the students to come down from the mountain and explore this world better. The players were inspired. They liked the opportunity to start new adventures. They were ready to go exploring the territory. The players turned to Brother Ren, called him to go on a trip rather. The same, in turn, considered them a bunch of idiots. However, the main thing for him was one thing. He needed to convince them to study in his sect because they could leave at any moment since they were not connected with this world in any way. Along the way, the players began to have questions. How long they have been walking, how long this task will take them. Someone replied that they had already passed a lot, but this game is very cool. Someone was already barely walking. And there were a lot of them because they had been walking like this for an hour and a half. Ken-ren silently commented on their conversations. What did they think? This is not a walk. They were almost there now. Suddenly, Ken-ren stopped. He addressed the Taoist cultivators, saying that they should not be afraid of difficulties. They should train at every opportunity to strive for the Tao. He pointed his finger somewhere to the side, saying that he was the first test. A huge sleeping animal lay in front of the players. The crowd started talking again. The students said that the model of the monster is just perfect. He even breathes super realistic. This monster is called Shuang Huao. It is found at the foot of Mount Zongmen. Besides him, there are also many other monsters. As long as all these monsters are here, it will be difficult for the sect to extract nearby natural resources. So, killing these monsters is the first test for the players. Ken-ren announced that the students needed to kill 100 Shuang Huao in 3 days. The faces of the students were tense. They seemed excited. The head of the sect added that if the disciples fail, then they will listen carefully to his advances and cultivate conscientiously, but so as not to overdo it. Now he was thinking that, although most of the sources of resources here are occupied by monsters, there are also those that are absolutely free. However, as long as the players wanted to fight, Kinren wanted to use them as manpower. Brilliant! Someone began to lift the tree, leaving only a stump from it. It was the demon flutist who had thrown the object he had grabbed onto his shoulder and was now rushing towards where Kinren was standing. The guy ran past the teacher, and he just looked questioningly while the demon flutist, jumping into the air, wished death to his enemy. A demon flutist with a tree on his shoulder furiously ran at the enemy, wishing him death. When he got close, he swung his weapon, hit the monster hard. The other players looked on with excitement. The tree was cracked by the impact. Now that the whole picture was visible, one could see how negligibly small the demon flutist was compared to the monsters he attacked. There were whispers in the crowd that Brother Tong was in too much of a hurry. He even broke down a tree. His attempt to defeat the monster was unsuccessful. Now he was lying near the monster. Kinren touched his forehead with his hand, thinking about what a fool this Brother Tong was. Didn't the Golden Seal recruit nerds into the sect for him? Brother Tong, in Kinren's opinion, was more like a noob. A bump appeared on the monster's head from a tree blow. He woke up and got to his feet. A demon flutist was crawling in front of him on his knees. The monster was getting closer to the offender. Other players just watched it. One thought Brother Tong's pose was funny because that's how they get up and pray for the new year. The other said he didn't think the beast would attack. The demon flutist opened one eye, then raised his head, looking up questioningly. The monster began to stomp. Even the ground shook. It was like an earthquake. The players did not understand what was happening. The demon lifted the leg under which the body of the crushed Brother Tong lay. His soul left its container, looking at what was happening in surprise. The monster was breathing heavily, and then pressed his head to the ground where his prey was. The students realized that the monster had killed Brother Tong, and he did it in a split second. Someone began to doubt that these are really monsters for beginners, because they look more like bosses. Kinren began to speak. The students, in his opinion, probably thought that it was difficult or even impossible to kill this monster. However, the head of the sect reported that Shuang Huao is the weakest monster within a radius of 15 kilometers. But the students began to chatter in response, believing that Kinren must be joking since he calls this monster the weakest. Now this game seemed very difficult to them, but the cultivator assumed that this was how his disciples would react. Then he decided that he needed to show the students how their master himself would deal with Shuang Huao. Kinren resolutely walked towards the monster. When he got closer, the monster looked at him. At the same moment, the monster's eyes widened and sparkled. He stood up and, making a loud sound, opened his mouth, from which drool flew. Even the cultivator's clothes were fluttering due to the rising wind. The monster fell silent, but still stared fiercely at the cultivator who was standing in front of him. Shuang Huao struck, crumbling the ground under him. Stones jumped into the air and flew apart. With this, he did not cause any harm to Kinren, because he deftly jumped right on the monster's back. Now he was moving around the monster, and his leg was shrouded in a green haze. He kicked off the beast's body with his foot and immediately found himself on the ground behind the opponent's back. He turned around, glaring angrily at the cultivator. He struck a crushing blow again, but Kinren jumped into the air and was not injured. He stretched out his hand, in which something gradually began to form. A green circle with sparks formed in his hand, from which the Kai King Chuan sword soon appeared. The green blade of the sword was reflected in the monster's eye. Kinren, being on his back, slashed his entire huge body with his sword. Blood gushed out. Kinren, surrounded by the green glow and the enemy's blood, stood with his arm outstretched. The monster collapsed to the ground. Because of such a fall, the dust around it rose into the air. Kinren, who was already on the ground, was still standing with the sword in his hands. After that, the sword began to disappear. The students opened their mouths and looked at the master, who had dealt with the monster so quickly that he had previously seemed incredibly strong to them. Now they started shouting Kinren's name, praising him and his cool sword. It seemed incredible to them. Kinren turned to the disciples of the Huaxi sect, asking if they remembered everything. There was an uproar among the students. Does Brother Ren really want to teach them this? Will they become as beautiful as he is? The students now wanted to follow their brother and study hard. Kinren was pleased with the result of his work. The first stage was completed. In the hall of the Huaxi sect, a disciple who had died earlier began to appear. Brother Tong came back and didn't understand what was going on yet. After that, he was torn with indignation. It's crazy, how can a monster at the start kill a player in a few seconds? He intended to go out and wanted to take the others with him. But he quickly discovered that he was alone here. There was no one else around. It quickly dawned on him that he was the only one who had died, and everyone else was still at the foot of the mountain. No one else died but him. He said with displeasure that now he would have to go down and look for other players. But this time he wanted to explore the map around. The demon flutist found himself next to the warehouse of techniques. He looked at it, thinking that maybe he could learn some technique. He decided that this was a legendary opportunity, and he himself was probably the chosen one. Brother Tong entered the building, looking around in surprise. It was dark here, only light from the open doors penetrated inside. Looking at the pile of books and debris that were lying on the floor, the player concluded that it was very dirty here. It upset him. He knelt down, his gaze fell on the blue book. The player took this item in his hands, enthusiastically shaking off the dust from it. He expected to see something else, but his eyes narrowed when he looked at the name. He decided that it was some kind of super powerful technique with which he could take over this world. However, it was just a technique for movement. Indeed, the book in his hand was about the technique of rapid movement. Upset by such a find, the demon flutist threw the book on the floor, calling it garbage and saying that even a dog would not teach such a thing. With quick steps, he walked away, leaving the book he found lying on the floor. The warehouse was empty. The doors were still open. Very quickly, the demon flutist changed his mind, returning inside and grabbing the blue book again. Now he looked at her doubtfully, noticing that even for free he would not teach this technique. In the next scene, with a book in his hands, a demon flutist was walking along a path between trees. He opened the book, deciding that he could take a look at its contents once. A voice was suddenly heard behind him. A man was addressing Tong and asking what he was holding. The frightened player began to hide the find. He decided that no one should find out about it. Tong turned around and saw Qin Ren, an NPC, standing nearby and smiling. The student saw Master Ren and excitedly put the book in front of him, showing it to the teacher and saying that he wanted to try to learn this technique. At this time, he was thinking that he should not hide something from the master, otherwise he could be excluded from the test at any moment. Qin Ren saw the book and stretched out his hand. The book instantly flew from the hands of the disciple into the hands of the master. The master read the title, The Technique of Quick Step. He returned the book to the student and turned around, about to leave, after which he said that His is the most common technique in the world of cultivation, and it has no special value. However, for novice cultivators it is a great option, so it can be used for practice. The master also added that the demon flutist can practice in the Gongfa Hall, sit cross-legged and meditate, providing the secret kingdom of Gongfa. He waved his hand as if saying goodbye to the student. The disciple was fascinated by the back of the man, who added that the master can only help pave the way, and the result depends on the disciple himself. Qin Ren turned his head, looking at the player. His last words were that the student needs to work hard, because the result depends only on him. In the hall, Gong Fa-tong was sitting on the floor with an open book. He was not surprised that he did not understand anything. It turns out that you need to meditate. He closed his eyes, adjusting himself and trying to concentrate. Suddenly, a blue glow began to appear above his head. Soon he was standing, and there were silhouettes around him showing the movement technique. The student realized that this is the technique of a quick step. In the next scene, blood is pouring onto the ground. It drips from the hand of a man who is breathing heavily. This guy seems to be seriously injured. His clothes are torn in the area, wounds not only on his shoulder, but also on his head. This disciple had come together in battle with Shuang Huao, who was now rushing straight towards the wounded man. The monster hit the ground in the place where this young man was standing, but he managed to jump aside in time, thereby saving his life. The kid thought he still had a chance, and the monster, glaring at him, glared at him. After a couple of seconds, this kid was already lying on the ground. His dying words were that he was unlucky. Everything would have been different if he had been a little faster. The players were watching this guy from the sidelines. It was Shan Wang. He tried again and again to defeat the monster immediately after the resurrection. This time he failed again. This game seemed very difficult to the players. Those who have already fought with this monster have come to the conclusion that at this speed it is simply impossible to overcome it. Someone said that it is, and the one who can defeat this beast will definitely become a hero. It was Brother Tong who appeared at the foot of the mountain, who resolutely said that the title of hero was quite suitable for him. It was already clear to everyone that speed was the key to victory, and it was worth thanking Shan Wang for such a hint. Brother Tong was heading towards the monster, and the players were asking if he knew how to defeat Shuang Huao. The demon flutist only replied that he should receive the title of hero in addition to his title of died first. He admitted to the players that he had learned a technique that could increase his speed. Preparing for the start, Tong confidently said that he would be the first to kill the monster in this game. The monster stood motionless. Tong rushed at him at breakneck speed. Shuang Huao's eyes widened in surprise. According to observers, it looked promising. They decided that Shuang Huao was scared and wished their friend good luck, hoping that he would kill the beast. But Brother Tong failed. The monster hit him with his nose. He flew high into the air. The players only looked at this failure, distorting their faces with discontent. The demon flutist died again. He went berserk, shouting that he was tired of this shit game. Afterwards, he noticed Shan Wang, who had also died earlier, and asked him if he was tired of dying and why he was in such a hurry to meet his death. Shan Wang, without turning around, began to tell a story. Once a climber, George Mallory, was asked by journalists why he needed to climb Mount Everest. Shan Wang asked Tong if he knew what the climber said, but immediately gave the answer, because it exists. According to George, life should be full of challenges. So now that Shan Wang has a task before him, he feels that he must fulfill it. It was a challenge for him, After all that was said, he decided to hit the road. Tong, who was pulling his hand towards his friend, asked him to wait. He hesitantly said that for Shan Wang's perseverance, he would make an exception and teach him one important skill. Meanwhile, the other disciples at the foot of the mountain were discussing Brother Tong's failure. Even though he became faster, he was still killed in a matter of seconds. Someone said that he was simply not destined to fight. All his attempts were in vain. One of the students told the guys that they needed to change their strategy. The students heard the sentence and began to turn around in the direction of the person who was saying it. That young man was Manhwa. He was a legendary strategist in various MMORPG games. His guild occupied countless of the first monster kills in the dungeons. The players couldn't believe that this person was really Manhwa. Everyone thought that someone just took his nickname. Now there was growing confidence among the players that with the help of Manhwa, they would be able to defeat Huaxi. Manhwa spoke again. He asked if anyone had said that they should fight without weapons. He offered to make a battle formation and put himself forward as a leader, and now he was asking how this idea was for other players. Meanwhile, the other two players were coming down the stairs. Tong was thinking that this guy, Shan Wang, had learned the quick step technique in just 20 minutes, although it took Tong himself an hour to do the same. Now Shan Wang had become even stronger. The demon flutist wanted to see how Shan Wang would kill Huaxi. The two finally arrived at the foot of the mountain, where the monster lived. Here, one person was in charge of all the others. He was telling the Rock Shield group to hold back Huaxi's attack. A group of spearmen were ordered to attack from the side and from behind, and the rest were to continue to look for an opportunity to attack together with everyone and inflict maximum damage. Manhwa has been doing a great job of commanding the players so far. The group with shields tried their best to restrain the monster. The spearmen attacked from the other side, doing everything as they were told. Manhwa told those who had already broken equipment to immediately run to him for a new one, since there was no time to lose in the fight against Huaxi. The battle was in full swing. Shan Wang watched from the side, saying that the guys would not be able to continue at the same pace. In his opinion, even if there are a lot of people, but the average strength is low, in any case, the players will lose. Tong listened attentively to his comrade. The monster was fighting back against the attackers. Manhwa told the Rock Shield group to keep holding on while the rest had to attack again and again. He himself thought that their situation was unenviable, because the spearmen simply did not have time to attack. One disciple told Manhwa that there were less than a third of them left, and another reported that they had only one spear left, and the rest seemed to have equipment left. Manhwa commanded again, this time telling everyone remaining to head towards him and prepare for the final attack. In front of everyone, he rushed at the enemy with a spear, shouting for everyone else to attack too. The monster was looking at a bunch of people, breathing heavily. He got up on his hind legs, intending to trample everyone in his path. Manhwa, standing right next to the danger, seemed quite alarmed. He looked up at the beast calling above him. Shan Wang concluded, this is definitely the end. He and Tong were still watching from the sidelines for everything that was happening here. The monster struck a crushing blow. After the blow inflicted by the monster, only the lifeless bodies lying on the ground remained from a bunch of people. All the players died. Brother Tong, now lying on the ground, said with chagrin that their entire formation had been destroyed, and also added that if he had not been so far away, he would have been able to deliver the final blow. This boss seemed invincible to him. In front of Tong's face were only the legs of Shan Wang, who was standing next to a comrade who had paid on the ground. He turned to Tong, deciding to tell him the truth. While this is a game, there is no invincible boss that cannot be defeated, and while Shan Wang is playing, he feels the need to win this battle, because this monster boss just exists. The players who had fallen on the battlefield began to appear in the hall of the Huaxi sect. Qin Ren was standing there as well. Manhwa began to doubt himself, already beginning to think that his legendary nickname was just a joke. Even though so many people have teamed up against one monster, they still haven't managed to defeat it. Even with the #1 leader, they still lost this fight. Someone started clapping. Qin Ren addressed the disciples of his sect, saying that now they know how cruel this world is. The master stood in front of the players and continued to speak, saying that even with the cultivation of the peak of the Kai purification sphere, it still takes a lot of strength and effort to defeat Huaxi. Of course, it is impossible to cope with this at the initial stage of body hardening. He gave the reason why he gave his students this task. It is so that they understand the truth. Cultivation is not easy. The master said that from now on they should follow his instructions, do what he tells them to do. Suddenly, an alert came from the system. The progress of the quest kill Huaxi has increased. One monster out of 100 was exposed by someone. This caused even Qin Ren to be surprised. Not to mention the other players who couldn't believe that there was someone who could defeat this beast. One of the students turned to Ren, suggesting that there must be something wrong with the system. The master thought about it. Mentally, he turned to the heavenly Tao to find out from him what had happened. The answer came immediately. Everything is as it was said in the notification. Someone was able to defeat Huaxi. The voice also added that he was not a heavenly Tao, but a golden seal of discovery. Then grumbling followed again, because the press will get tired of it if Qin Ren asks something constantly. That's why the Golden Seal decided to give Ren permission so that he could immediately see the specific situation with the quest. Qin Ren again asked questions. Did someone really defeat Shuang Huao? Who is he and how did he do it? The Golden Seal was only indignant, because it seemed to her that Qin Ren was not listening to her at all. To the students, this state of affairs seemed impossible. Zhenhua was sure that it was Shan Wang, only he could defeat this monster. It seemed quite real to the others. Shan Wang could really defeat the monster, but how did he do it? Is he a cheater? Besides, he wasn't here now, which meant he wasn't dead. It was still hard to believe. Qin Ren's original plan was to break the spirit of the disciples with this impossible task, then force them to move on to the next stage, to cut wood and mine stone, rebuild the sect. However, now his plans have changed. Qin Ren asked the disciple who was talking about Shan Wang to take him to this person. Tong stood next to the defeated monster, asking if he was really dead. The other students arrived at their destination, immediately seeing Tong and Shan Wang here. Shuang Huao's corpse also did not go unnoticed. Shan Wang himself was sitting on it, and Tong was standing on the ground next to him. Tong was cheerful, and Shan Wang was smiling smugly, watching the reaction of his comrades. Zhenhua made sure that this was indeed the person he was talking about. Qin Ren asked the disciple if he had defeated Shuang Huao himself. The disciple jumped off the corpse, landing next to the master, and said that it was true he himself defeated the beast, although it was quite difficult. Qin Ren thought that this player was undoubtedly still in the Kai purification stage. It really seemed unusual to defeat Shuang Huao with a power that is only at this stage of Kai purification. Qin Ren asked the student if he could defeat another monster to show the others how he did it. The student looked resolutely at the teacher and promised to try to do it. Everyone, including Qin Ren, watched from afar as Shan Wang approached the sleeping monster. He stopped. There was a stone lying near his foot, which was immediately picked up. With the stone in his hand, the disciple looked at the monster, saying that this area was flat and open. It was perfect. He threw a stone, hitting Shuang Huao right in the head. The monster immediately woke up and began to rise. Shan Wang's actions seemed ridiculous to someone, because he used the stone to fight the enemy. Zhenhua watched carefully and asked the commentator to be silent. Meanwhile, the beast was rushing at the one who dared to disturb him, and Shan Wang was watching and waiting. When the monster was very close, the student dodged its attack. Only stones flew in all directions. Zhenhua tensely followed Shan Wang's movements. Shan Wang did not let up. The monster also did not want to retreat. The actions of the student seemed unusual despite the fact that it is difficult to dodge such direct attacks. This minimizes damage. The monster struck again. Dust rose around and the ground shook. Shan Wang, being on the side, struck Shuang Huao's muzzle. It's really like cutting on the edge of a knife. Qin Ren understood everything. This is a fighting style based on the technique of quick step. During the monster's attack, you can save stamina by using only precise evasions. It's just that Shan Wang not only uses the quick step to increase the movement speed, but also increases the strike distance, thereby strengthening his attack. That is why even low-level learning techniques can be very useful. Shan Wang was very fast. He moved so that he was almost invisible. Shuang Huao did not have time to touch him. Shan Wang did not receive a single blow during the battle, while Shuang Huao himself had already received several blows. The disciples had no doubts now. Shan Wang could definitely kill this monster. Everyone was sure of it. The student was standing in front of the monster, and the monster was looking at him. Shuang Huao was preparing to attack, and Shan Wang knew that he had to be ready, because the enemy would use a large-scale attack. Qin Ren calmly watched. The faces of the other students reflected surprise. Angrily looking at his opponent, Shuang Huao struck, but the disciple jumped up, again not even allowing himself to be hurt. This tactic of his amazed observers. Shan Wang used the hatchet, from above striking a decisive blow right on the monster's head. Shuang Huao fell, his eyes rolled back. The notification from the system came again. The progress of the quest kills Shuang Huao, 2 out of 100. After his victory, the disciple carefully lowered himself to the ground. Smiling and crossing his arms over his chest, Qin Ren said that it was not bad. After winking at everyone gathered, Shan Wang asked if they had learned what had been demonstrated to them. Qin Ren was almost indignant. How dare this disciple imitate him? The crowd shouted the winner's name, called him Superman and said that it was damn great. The crowd surrounded their hero. Someone remembered him. This is Shan Wang, aka the King of the Mountains, abbreviation, COM. A COM that has set countless speedrun records for super complex games. There were even his fans here. They did not expect that he also plays online games. Qin Ren watched from the sidelines, concluding that Shan Wang seemed to have a very good reputation. Suddenly something else caught the master's attention. One of the students, who was behind the master, turned to him, deciding to say something to him. Someone was standing near the body of the defeated monster, but most of the students crowded around the hero of the day. Qin Ren coughed to get everyone's attention and say something. He did it. The students looked in the direction of the master. Shan Wang listened respectfully to the master. He thought about it, and then announced that Shan Wang not only committed the first murder, but also conducted a demonstration of milking other students. He really did an excellent job, so after completing the mission he will receive an additional bonus. And also the one who commits the most murders will receive an additional bonus. The disciple thanked the master, and he said that he hoped that Shan Wang would be able to help other disciples of the sect learn how to fight. Shan Wang asked the master not to worry about this. The master turned around, preparing to leave and thinking that all they needed was a positive attitude. Finally, he said that he would look forward to success from his students. After the master left, the disciples crowded around Shan Wang again. Now they were asking to be taught how to fight. Someone was going to throw the video to everyone after returning, hoping that they would bookmark it and put a 10. Some students were walking away, and Shan Wangi addressed them through the crowd surrounding them, saying that the master had asked him to teach everyone martial techniques. Did they really not want to try? The student with 82 fu said that battles were not for him and that the master had assigned them another task. Shan Wang sadly looked after them, wanted to object something, but another student said that Shan Wang should leave him because there really is a better case for him, so do not try to convince him. Shan Wang had no choice. He immediately agreed. Sunny clear weather. Birds are sitting on the roof of the building. Tong was outside the main hall of the Kingshuan sect and was cursing. He was upset because he was the first to discover the quick step technique, but in the end, Shan Wang coped with the task. And Tong can't learn his fighting style in any way. Tong was also confident that this amazing cultivation game would be a hit in the future, so if he couldn't close the gap now, all the bonuses would be snapped up. Suddenly, Tong began to look around, having discovered something. Here it is, what he was looking for. Meanwhile, at the foot of the mountain, Shan Wang was standing in front of another monster. While the other disciples were training at a fast pace, he was going to kill another two-horned beast. Shan Wang called the enemy to him, saying that he already knew all his movements by heart. Suddenly, an alert came that another monster had been destroyed. This caused Shan Wang to be surprised. He was distracted. Shuang Hua was already rushing towards him at full speed. The disciple did not have time to react and met with a powerful monster attack, which instantly threw him into the air. Shan Wang died and appeared in the sect hall, annoyed that he had lost so stupidly, distracted by the notification. Brother Tong was also standing in the same hall. He seemed pleased and hummed some melody. Shan Wang realized that it was Brother Tong who committed the murder, so he decided that he had found some other new technique. Other students were discussing the new alert. They were thinking about who had committed another murder. The answer seemed obvious. It was Shan Wang. Meanwhile, Shan Wang was rushing to where the monsters live. He decided that he needed to act quickly, since Tong had probably found some new technique. The notification came again. Another murder. Shan Wang was shocked again, because he hadn't even managed to descend the steps yet. Brother Tong appeared from behind, happy and smiling all over his face. Shan Wang couldn't figure out how Tong had committed murder again. The disciple did not want to screw up. He believed that he simply had to kill the next beast right now. However, he was outpaced again. An alert came about the fifth monster killed. How is this even possible? Right now, Shan Wang was fighting the monster with all his might, dodging its attacks and thinking that it was not so easy to cope with the two-horned beast. A few students stood away from the hype and practiced. One of them said that they were almost done with a quick step, so they could try to kill the two-horned beast. Another suggested looking at Shan Wang again first. The alert came again. 6 beasts out of 100 was killed. The disciple was amazed at how quickly Shan Wang copes with killing monsters. However, it came to mind that they had all already seen how Shan Wang copes with enemies. It takes him a lot of time. Now, in such a short period of time, someone has already committed as many as 4 monsters. Someone suggested that other masters had appeared. At that moment, the students noticed Brother Tong, who was walking, looking around. They wondered what this guy was doing secretly from everyone. It was suspicious. The students decided that something was definitely wrong here. They all decided to follow Tong unnoticed to find out what he was doing. The bushes rustled. Tong was making his way through them. He found another two-horned beast and was now chuckling contentedly. From the same bushes, Tong was being watched. 5 pairs of eyes stared at him, deciding that Brother Tong was going to fight the monster again. Tong rushed at the beast. He was sleeping, and then abruptly opened his eyes, opening his mouth wide. Tong, as if expecting this, jumped right into the monster's mouth. He slammed his mouth shut. A loud sound rang out. The guys watching from the bushes did not understand what kind of noise it was. Blood flowed from Shuang Hua's mouth, after which he collapsed. The alert came again. 7 monsters out of 100 were killed. The heads of the students appeared from behind the bushes, who looked questioningly at everything that had happened. It was now obvious that Brother Tong was carrying out these murders, but how did he manage it? They didn't understand anything at all, so it was decided to calm down, behave quietly, wait and see again how Tong would kill the monster. Another alert. 8 monsters out of 100 were killed. And again, the students did not understand anything. The monster just ate Brother Tong and died. Did Brother Tong do something? One of the guys thoughtfully adjusted his glasses. He came out of the bushes, declaring that he understood everything, that he had solved this riddle. Another yelled at him, saying that he might be noticed. But the guy didn't care. He moved further away from the bushes while the other students asked him to come back. because there was a two-horned beast. The guy with glasses started saying that in fact they all missed one important detail. They always had the best weapon against the two-horned beast. He thought he understood what the truth was, and came very close to the enemy. With that, he seriously informed that human flesh is poison for these monsters. Other students wondered if this could be true. Meanwhile, the guy with glasses landed right in the mouth of Shuang Huo, and he began to chew him. The students watched with excitement. Will it really work? Is it really as this kid said? But nothing happened. The monster just chewed his lunch, followed by only a belch. The students frowned, silently watching. The eaten boy is resurrected. He did not see any notification about the murder and realized that his conclusion was incorrect. However, it was not so important to him because he still had a plan B. He decided to wait. Meanwhile, the 9th murder has already occurred. After that, Brother Tong appeared in the hall of the Huaxi sect, where a guy with glasses was waiting for him. It was Zhang Dan. He was hiding behind a pillar and was about to reveal the secret of how Tong triumphs over the two-horned beast. Tong looked around, then began to sneak into the building. Zhang Dan, who had been following him all this time, was watching from the bushes and began to understand what was happening. This was the Qingshuan sect's alchemy hall. Going inside, Tong took a ball, laughed contentedly, hit it, and then left. However, Zhang Dan had already figured out his secret. The singing of birds was interrupted only by the exclamations of the students, to whom Zhang Dan told about the Tong method. He told me about the pill. One of the students was looking at this small object, saying that Brother Tong was relying on it. After that, he said that he also wanted to become stronger, and immediately put this pill in his mouth. Zhang Dan did not have time to stop his comrade. When he died, Zhang only said in chagrin that he had not told him to eat this pill. The student explained to the other two that what he was holding in his hands were powder pills that were eaten by a two-horned beast, which was why he died because of the explosion inside. One of the students said that Brother Tong just put a powder pill on his body and jumped into the mouth of a two-horned beast. Now the same student has decided that he has a better idea. He went out to the two-horned beast, openly declaring that he was going to kill him. Comrades watched these actions, hiding in the bushes. The beast quickly reacted to the player's cry. It opened its mouth wide, making a loud sound. It seemed to the student that this was a great chance, so he swung and threw the pill. It hit right on target, falling on the monster's tongue. The monster closed its mouth. The student, pleased with himself, concluded that there was no point in putting himself in danger because you can make an accurate throw. However, soon the two-horned beast spat out the item, it didn't work, and now the enemy was running at the disciple, attacking him. The boy flew into the air because of the blow, saying out loud what everyone had already noticed without him: the monster just spat out a pill. Zhang Dan called this guy an idiot, because Brother Tong would not climb into the monster's mouth if such a method worked. The disciple who stayed with Dan suggested that he do exactly the same as Brother Tong did. Dan agreed, but first decided that they needed to hide the unused pills. The notification of a new murder has come. Tong Joyous was in the sect hall, saying that he had killed another one. This was immediately followed by 2 alerts, 2 new kills, and the progress of the task, 12 out of 100. Tong was surprised by the 2 murders that followed each other. He decided that it was Shan Wang who was already so strong. However, he noticed that 2 players appeared in the sect. Something immediately cleared up in his head. The other students also discussed the murders happening very quickly. Someone thought that he was all the work of Shan Wang, but how could he become so strong so quickly? Something is clearly wrong here. Qin Ren was in the head of the sect's office, and Tufu was there, who reported that he had taken care of everything. He showed the skins to the master. Qin Ren said that it looked really perfect, really good work. These skins are a valuable resource for making leather armor, storage bags, and other containers. He also added that Tufu and other disciples who helped him made a great contribution to the development of the sect, so at the end of the mission they will deservedly receive their reward. The students thanked the head. Tufu turned to the head, saying that, in his opinion, the students passed the assigned task too quickly. The 2-horned beast is quite large. They do not have time to remove the skin from one, as they are dragged 2 more. Because of this, the quality of the skin deteriorates. The carcass is left for a long time without removing the skin immediately. Qin Ren concluded that this was very strange. It was amazing that a 2-horned beast could be defeated by someone with a hidden realm, but now they were even faster to kill. The master instructed Tufu to find more students who can't fight, so that they too skin, because it's not worth wasting material. Tufu obeyed. After that, other students came, who also had already done what the master asked for. They put down the bones they had brought with them and showed him. These were the bones of a 2-horned beast. They are very hard and serve as a good material for equipment. Qin Ren also promised to reward these students at the end of the mission. Gu Wanged, one of them, thanked the master. Meanwhile, the girl, Xiao Chunyan, was calling everyone to her because she had cooked the meat of a 2-horned beast. Now everyone had to try it. This did not go unnoticed by the man who was standing behind the girl. This man, Zhang Ren, drooled and said that it smelled so delicious that he really wanted to taste a piece. However, Gu Wang informed Zhang Ren that the head wanted to see him. Zhang Ren was a little saddened by this news. Qin Ren was drinking tea in his office when someone came to him. It was a frustrated Zhang Ren, asking if the head was looking for him. Ken Ren didn't understand what was wrong with this man and why he looked like he had lost his soul. He can still work, right? The master replied that he really called him, and then invited him to look at the raw materials and asked what things he could make from what was available here. Giant Ren looked at the bones and skins. He answered by starting the enumeration: spears, swords, daggers, bone whips, shields and armor. All this he can make from the available raw materials. According to him, a total of 10 pieces of equipment and several backpacks can be made. Ken Ren chuckled, noticing how quickly this man's mood changed. Behind the wall, someone shouted a disgruntled curse. Some person was indignant, asking who it was. Outside the sect hall, already at the foot of the mountain, Tong was torn with anger, asking who had robbed him. A student who approached Tong asked what had happened to him. An alert came from the system: 4 more new murders, total task progress 18 out of 100. It seemed incredible. However, Tong already understood what was going on. He poured curses on the unfortunate thief. The same disciple asked Brother Tong again what had happened. Zhang Dan, standing in the crowd, adjusted his glasses and chuckled contentedly, thereby attracting the attention of some players. He started talking to Brother Tong, told him that he had learned how to kill monsters in his way, and this way is much better than to Shan Wang. Tong asked with displeasure, "Does Dan think he has learned?" "Yes, this guy is just a thief. Dan is just a tonk not to say so, because the resources belong to each of them." A commotion began to rise among the students. They did not understand what was happening, but it began to dawn on them that these 2 horned beasts had been killed by Brother Tong. However, the method remained unknown. Zhang Dan also said that he would tell everyone the truth if the students wanted it. After that, it became known to everyone that Tong hid powder bullets on his body and so rushed into the monster's mouth. Among the students began to discuss what they had heard. Brother Tong was called reckless. Someone thought that his way was too strange, and someone on the contrary said that it was brilliant. However, the disciples decided to move, because they knew that in any case they would be resurrected. Now they must arrange a human bombardment of the monsters. The entire crowd of players rushed for pills. Someone thanked Brother Tong for this discovery, and he only tried hopelessly to appeal to the guys. Almost everyone ran away, and Brother Tong was very angry. He turned to Dan and started shouting at him, because this idiot told everyone, despite the fact that all the powder pills would immediately be sorted out. How was he going to use this method himself, since everyone knows about it now? Zhang Dan said that Tong was absolutely right, but also added that he did not need these pills. Tong asked what the joke was then. Looking at Tong with a determined and cunning look, Dan said that he had come up with a more effective way, which is why he was ready to sacrifice these pills. And this method consists in the fact that, in the hall of the sect, Shan Wang was reborn again. He was distracted again by the alert when 4 murders occurred in a row. He was lying on the floor and now he hit it with his fist. Already being on the street, he said that he thought he was the strongest here, and did not know that there are many masters stronger than him here. Now he felt he had to work even harder. Suddenly he saw 2 students nearby. They were talking too loudly. One shouted that he just needed to make a show. Dan said there was only one truth: the show-off frog will always touch your stomach. Dan reported that he always enjoyed shocked looks. This sense of superiority for him is the pinnacle of intellectual ostentation. Tong looked at this guy carefully, thinking that he was a little strange, but acknowledging that there was still some meaning in his words. The demon flutist thought that Shan Wang was using the game for training, and Zhang Dan was just enjoying it. Show-off clearly appears in his philosophy. Shan Wang appeared behind Tong, patted him on the shoulder and asked what was going on. Dan smiled, saying that here was another person who did not know the whole truth. Tong turned around, telling the show-off to explain everything to him himself. The guy himself decided to go and see how many powder pills were left. Shan Wang remained silent, only following Tong with his eyes. In the next scene, Shan Wang was already descending the stairs. His face seemed serious. He digested all the information he had received. Powder pills, and everyone copes one-on-one. That's what they were doing while he was trying to fight monsters. He remembered the words of Dan, who said that unlike other games, battles will no longer be the basis in this one. It made him frown. Do they really think that strength is not the most important thing? Shan Wang intended to prove to everyone that this was not the case. He intended to prove that the truth was valid. But while he was descending, another alert came from the system. Then the second, and then a few more. He stopped, startled. The guy concluded that this is a slippery slope, because in this way the guys will not last long. In his opinion, everything still depended on him. 2 more alerts have arrived. Shan Wang said that it was useless anyway, because they have a limited number of powder pills. After that, 2 more alerts followed. Once again, Shan Wang stood and convinced himself that the pills would run out very soon. However, the notifications still did not stop. The progress of the task was already 29 out of 100. The young man clutched his head. How can he fight if he constantly hears this sound? Very soon, progress reached the 99th murder. The sound of the alerts has stopped. Shan Wang froze, realizing that nothing else was happening. He ran down the stairs, thinking that the guys had run out of pills. which undoubtedly pleased him because Shan Wang decided that the last murder would be for him. He quickly found the two-horned monster, thinking that perhaps with this kill he could score the most kills and then get additional bonuses. He looked at the monster, thinking that he would become number 1 if he killed it. The student was still going to prove to everyone that strength is above all in this game. However, he suddenly saw something that caught his attention. In the monster's mouth was Brother Tong, who had already been chewed up. It was bad, because the last murder was taken away from Van. The monster ate Brother Tong, followed by a belch. There was no explosion, the monster was still alive. Shan Wang decided that this time the method with the pill did not work. He was glad that this stupid weapon did not kill the monster. This was to be expected, because the crooked path would not come to success. Shan Wang shouted, calling the monster to him, saying that his opponent was here and that he, Shan Wang, would defeat him in a worthy way. The two-horned monster was running towards the enemy. The cheerful Shan Wang was just waiting for this, but suddenly blood gushed out of the monster's mouth. The pill worked. The two-horned beast collapsed to the ground right in front of Shan Wang. A notification followed that the progress of the task is 100 out of 100. The task was completed successfully. Shan Wang completely drooped, his face instantly darkened. Near the sect, Xiao Chunyan was cooking a huge two-horned monster on a bonfire. Shan Wang was walking back from the battlefield, drooping and upset. He was walking, looking down. When he approached, Xiao Chunyan shouted at the top of her voice that the barbecue was ready. He looked at what was happening with a sad expression on his face. The guys celebrated the perfect completion of the mission. They flew into the food, devoured the meat, offering a drink to Xiao Chunyan, who cooked such a yummy. Someone in the crowd was also drinking for Brother Tong, because without his sacrifice they would not have been able to win. He just giggled in embarrassment. Shan Wang looked at the players hopefully for a moment, but eventually became sad again. He turned around to leave. However, one of the students noticed him, shouting his name. Shan Wang froze for a moment, then clenched his fists tightly and clenched his teeth, thinking that the guys could say whatever they wanted. The students began to raise their glasses to drink 3 times to the strongest player, Shan Wang. He immediately turned in their direction. The guys looked at him, smiling, and said that if it hadn't been for him, who killed the first two-horned beast, they might have already left this game. They said that it was amazing. It made their blood boil. Shan Wang was the best for them. Xinhua waved to Shan Wang, inviting him to sit down because he had already been poured. There was joy on Shan Wang's face again. He mentally turned to the guys. His eyes shone. This disciple immediately rushed to everyone else. In the next scene, steam was coming from the hot drink. Ken Ren was sitting in his office with his eyes closed. He was thinking that all this had happened in less than 1 day. He already knew that the guys were using powder pills to achieve their goal. Already on the street, one of the students exclaimed that the master was right here. Ken Ren appeared before the disciples of the sect. Tong, who thought that Brother Ren had come to the barbecue, reported that Xiao Chunyan was a great cook. The master called Zhang Tong to him. He immediately came over, saying that he was here. The master asked if Tong was really the first person to kill a two-horned beast with powder pills, after which other students followed his example. Brother Tong thought it was bad because it seemed to him that the master wanted to punish him. Tong immediately became agitated, deciding that the master wanted to punish him for using powder pills in the fight against two-horned monsters. He hoped that the NPC wasn't going to delete his account, because he didn't want to leave this game like that. Xinhua turned to the head, asking if he thought Brother Tong's tactics were inappropriate. Shan Wang also stood up for his friend, saying that regardless of whether a black cat or a white one, a good cat is one that can catch a mouse. Tong looked at his brothers with tears in his eyes, who were protecting him now. Ken Ren looked questioningly at the students, and then asked who said and why they thought he was going to punish Tong. These words of his caused surprise to all 3 of them. The master turned to Zhang Tong again, saying that he had plucked up the courage to try new methods and eventually brilliantly completed the task. In total, he killed 10 two-horned beasts, and contributed the most to the killings. Therefore, the master assigned Tong 10 points and 1 inner pill. The points received can be used as currency in the sect. Tong beamed with happiness. He happily thanked the head and said that he would work even harder. It turned out that they wanted to reward him, not punish him. Shan Wang thought that Brother Tong's method was indeed very effective, although not very correct. The master also made a small remark. The powder pill method cannot be used permanently. To himself, he thought that the pill would eventually run out. Shan Wang rejoiced, deciding that, apparently, the one-on-one battle was still relevant. Now, Ken Ren turned to Shan Wang, who immediately responded. The master said that this disciple had killed 5 two-horned beasts, including the very first one, and had also trained other disciples, so his reward would be an inner pill and 6 points. The student thanked the head and promised to continue to try further. In addition, Ken Ren reported that Tufu, Gu Wang and Zhang Ren have made high-quality equipment for the sect, so each of them receives an internal pill. All 3 thanked the head. For some students, it was a revelation that there is also a reward for making equipment. Xinhua sat silently at the table, leaning on one hand, and sighed heavily. He looked rather sad. The master announced that all the listed awards will be officially issued tomorrow, and new techniques will be delivered to the Hall of Techniques. He also said that the inner pill is used to improve cultivation, and contribution points are used to exchange items and so on. If the students continue to get the skin of the two-horned beast, the number of points will increase, so the master advised them to work hard to become even stronger. Leaving, Qin Ren turned around and called Xinhua with him. He was no less surprised than the other students. Both came to the clan's office. Xinhua did not hesitate and immediately asked why the head needed him. The master said that although this time the young man was not awarded with an internal pill, it was very clear to everyone that his fighting abilities were extremely outstanding. Qin Ren handed the disciple a scroll, saying that the sect was giving him a task. The master told him to look at the scroll, which the disciple did, concluding that a map was drawn there. The weather was good again, sunny, warm, birds soared in the sky. The disciple was holding an inner pill in his hand. He said that she looked very strange, and thought that she would be disgusting to eat. At this time, behind Tong's back, Shan Wang had already brought the pill to his mouth, intending to eat it. When he swallowed the pill, everyone stared at him to see what would happen to him after that. A red aura rejoiced around Shan Wang. He stood with his eyes closed and clenched fists and seemed very tense, and then abruptly opened his eyes. Everyone started asking if he felt any changes. Looking at his hands, Wang said he felt like he was stronger than before. Also, now he could view personal information. He was looking at a window that popped up near him, in which all his basic information was indicated. He noticed that in the cultivation column he had indicated peak of the hidden Yuan kingdom. He had already reached such a level while someone was only at the initial stage. One of the disciples said that the realms are usually divided into the initial, middle, late, and peak stages. This means that Shan Wang has risen 3 levels. Someone said that it's only 3 levels. There's nothing in it that they can't overcome. Another called him an idiot, explaining that in the world of immortals it is difficult to advance even to the first level in the realm. It usually takes at least a year to practice to raise at least the first level, not to mention the fact that it becomes more difficult every time. So, Shan Wang has made a big step forward. Shan Wang was about to leave when he was called and asked where he had gone. He replied that he was going to go and kill the two-horned monster, because only in this way can you find out how much he really became stronger. Shan Wang has already begun to be considered a battle madman. Among the disciples, someone began to wonder what the price of the inner pill was. One of the players approached Tungu, asking if he wanted to sell an internal pill that would be paid for with real money. Chufu, Gu Wang, and Zhang Ren were also asked about selling internal pills. Tong did not agree to sell the inner pill, because he was going to use it himself, but Tufu, Gu Wang, and Zhang Ren decided to sell their own because they did not like fighting anyway. The auction has started. Someone offered 100, someone 200, then the bid rose to 400, and then to 500. As a result, there was a person who offered 1,000. This person turned out to be Zhang Dan. Someone asked him why he was giving such money for an item of improvement at an early stage. The young man replied that the rich have their own quirks. Now he was talking to 3 disciples who were going to sell pills. He said that he only needed 1 pill, so the rest of the students should figure it out for themselves. Some students suddenly raised the bid to 2,000. Dan turned around to see who was taking away his superiority. It was Xinhua. He added that he would take all 3 pills. Dan began to get indignant, asking why he needed so many internal pills. Xinhua just spread his hands, saying that the rich have their own quirks. Besides, he didn't say that he was going to use all 3 pills alone. Xinhua started saying that in that case, these 3 inner pills. Dan said that this guy is a damn rich man, so it seems no one else is bidding against him. Tong raised his hand, asking everyone to wait. Dan was in shock, not knowing what to expect from this man. Xinhua became agitated, thinking that Brother Tong was constantly doing some strange things. The young man decided that if Tong raised the price to 3,000, then he would have to raise it to 4,000 to get the pills. Xinhua raised his index finger up, raising the bid to 3,000. The pills should belong to him. Tong and Dan stood in shock. Xinhua noticed that Brother Tong seemed stunned, because he did not expect the price to rise again. The young man was determined to win this auction. Scratching his neck, Brother Tong said that he didn't really want to buy pills. On the contrary, he wanted to sell his own, but since Xinhua is ready to give as much as 3,000 for them, it's worth thanking him for it. Tong said that Xinhua is really good. Xinhua only looked at Brother Tong questioningly. A disciple who had previously wanted to buy a pill from Tong said that he had not previously intended to sell it. Tong explained, he just decided that they wouldn't give much for it. That's why he didn't want to sell, and when he found out that they were offering more than 100 for the pill, he just didn't have time to intervene. But now Tong sold it for 3,000, which he was incredibly pleased with. He thanked Xinhua again. The other students started saying that this young man was very generous. Xinhua smiled nervously, thinking that his reputation as a strategist had been destroyed in this game. In the sect study, a cultivator held an inner pill in his hands. Qin Ren was saying out loud that the task of killing 100 two-horned beasts was completed. He repeated it several times. 100 two-horned beasts. The master looked at the pill and laughed. At some point his laughter, coupled with his facial expression, began to seem creepy. Qin Ren sat thinking and decided that he was a little distracted. There was a large amount of internal pills in front of him. 100 inner pills were extracted from 100 two-horned beasts, but he only gave 5 as a reward. It was a very good deal. The rest of the students can only get points, but as long as they increase the number of points consumed, they will still actively complete tasks. According to Qin Ren, any capitalist would cry from what he saw. Now the head of the sect was at the peak of the Dongming realm. If he took 50 internal pills at once, he would be able to break through the realm and reach the Yaoguan realm. However, he decided to postpone these pills for a while. He touched them and they disappeared. He was looking at his hand. One of the fingers was wearing a ring that had pills in it. He stared at him in silence, lost in memories. Once, Yu returned to him, saying that she had a gift for him. She was hiding something in her hands, and then she held out her palms, showing the ring. Qin Ren then said that it was a priceless storage ring. He asked if the girl really wanted to give it to him. She turned away resentfully, saying that he would not get it if he did not want it. But the young man hurried to convince her he would take it. He would take it. He accepted this gift. The girl agreed, and then said that she was returning to the Ice Palace so soon, because she'd be in trouble if anyone found out she'd snuck out. Qin Ren put the girl's gift on his finger. Right now, he was thinking that his sect should become stronger as soon as possible. Only then would he have the strength to fight the Ice Palace. At the hall of the sect, someone indignantly shouted that this was too much. The students found out that it takes 1 point to study the technique, and it lasts for an hour. The question arose whether the score would be wasted if the student failed to learn the technique. Moreover, there are also those who did not kill two-horned beasts. These people do not have points at all. Tong asked the students to pay attention to the fact that points can be traded. One student shouted at him, saying that they didn't need it, because in the end Tong would still sell them to a rich man who would offer a lot of money, and the others wouldn't get anything in the end. He added that the damned merchants and the damned rich spoil the whole game. Xinhua, approaching Tong and putting his hand on his shoulder, said that he had already bought 5 points from him for 50 yuan, after which he planned to send them to those brothers in the group who do not have points. Everyone started praising Xinhua, the leader of the group and everyone's hero. Someone asked the students to pay attention to the fact that melee fighters should first learn the turtle shell technique. These words were heard. The students understood everything and took into account. Tong watched what was happening. Now so many people are going to the Hall of Technicians. Tong went into the technician's room and found himself alone in the room. Qin Ren probably optimized the system. Now Tong closed his eyes and was ready to start practicing. Glowing silhouettes appeared in front of him, standing in certain poses. It was a turtle shell technique. There was another student standing in front of the Hall of Technicians, who was choosing a technique for practice. He didn't want to study the protective technique of the turtle shell. He thought about the recovery technique, that it was some kind of healing skill. It didn't suit him either. The rapid movement technique seemed to him a good option, but he couldn't believe that it was worth as much as 5 points. Then followed the ice technique. Haramaru looked at it enthusiastically, deciding that it was a skill specially created for him. He liked the ice technique the most, and in the end his choice fell on it. In the next scene on the street, someone was counting 47, 48, 49, 50. The student reported to the leader that all team members had finished their training and gathered. Xinhua said it was great. He led his team resolutely. They were moving in a crowd, but suddenly stopped. The students stared ahead, stunned. Shan Wang was sitting on the many corpses of two-horned beasts. Xinhua asked if he had killed all these monsters. Shan Wang replied that he had killed 25 of them. After that, he jumped to the ground, saying that he was tired and would go to the sect to rest. He really looked unimportant. Jian seemed tired and battered. Leaving, he told the guys to show what teamwork is. Xinhua told Wang to go rest, and when he came down, he wouldn't surprise the two-horned beasts here for a long time. Xinhua also said that there was an update in the Hall of Techniques, so Wang should not forget the new techniques, since he managed to get so many points. One of the students asked why the leader told Shan Wang about this, because they wouldn't be able to catch up with him that way. But Xinhua replied that it was all nonsense. They were all like brothers in the same clan. Shan Wang was already approaching the Hall of Technicians. He concluded that it was not worth overexerting himself so much, because after killing 25 two-horned beasts, he felt so exhausted that he barely climbed the stairs. Haramaru passed by Wang. Shan turned in his direction, surprised. Was it possible to set such a low height in the game? Meanwhile, the fight with the two horns was in full swing. The defeated monster fell to the ground. It turned out again. It was already the 5th beast killed by the Xinhua team. For this, the students thanked Xinhua, who advised them to study the turtle shell technique first, because it is much better to fight longer, rather than die in a few seconds. The leader was absolutely right. Now the team has started searching for other animals in the area. Xinhua thought that it seemed that the first step in the head's mission to control the surrounding resources had been completed. Another beast was found very quickly. Already standing near the beast, Xinhua wondered how this was possible. The monster was shrouded in ice from all sides. It definitely wasn't Shan Wang's work. Then who could have done it? Some student remembered that there was some kind of ice technique in the Hall of Technicians. It turns out there is another strong student. Zenhua was thinking that he didn't have many points, so for safety reasons he mastered the turtle shell technique. But it seems that other skills also seem to be quite useful. The intelligence group sent someone back. The student informed the leader that a mine had been found. Zenhua told everyone who received points to go back and study the ice technique. After forming a ranged group, the rest had to go with the leader to take a point with resources. It was very dark in the mine. Several people have already gone inside. One asked if they could enter the cave without waiting for word from the leader. Another replied that it did not matter, because the leader did not forbid entering the cave, and they were just conducting reconnaissance for the team. The three walked forward, further and further. They would not see anything at all if they continued to move deeper. The player who was ahead of everyone said that there was nothing to be afraid of, because this is a great opportunity to achieve success, so they should be bolder. The two stood and looked at the friend's back. He disappeared into the darkness, after which a loud scream was heard. Two guys in a panic started asking what happened. The story begins with the thoughts of the protagonist Shen Kang that everyone around him is weak, unable to get a system, and if you do not make a bank deposit, then you are no different from dirt. The Yan School is one of the main schools among thousands in the country. 50 years ago, after the recovery of the world economy, it gradually became the main one in the field of Wushu. This school has more than 50 teachers with an E8 certificate, 5 gold medalists with an E3 certificate. A large number of students are transferred to the higher school of martial arts every year. All the students looked in surprise at the newcomer who came out of a large tinted black car, accompanied by personal guards. A young guy with red hair, dressed in an iron light suit and with a proud expression on his face, is the young owner of the Shenkai Corporation. The sight of him alone inspired wealth and confidence. There were rumors that he entered the 11th grade without passing the entrance exam in martial arts. This important exam is taken in order to enter the 7th grade. But the main character didn't have to study hard, and all because of a rich and influential family. An unknown young man who crashed sharply confused the guards of the young master of the Shen family. He turned out to be the illegitimate child of the father of the main character named Shen Hao-chan. As it turned out, the Shen family had a decent number of illegitimate children. The defenders of Shenkai reacted sharply to the arrogant bastard. They were already ready to catch the thief, but their master told them to stop. The young gentleman did not want to punish the boy. On the contrary, he offered help in paying off debts. Shen Hao-chan rudely refused his rich brother, reproaching him for his high status and position. Instead of catching the petty hooligan, Shen Kai transferred 200,000 yuan from his account to him. After all, though not a native, but a brother, it would be too heartless not to help the outcast family. The personal guard of the gentleman was only surprised at such a kind gesture. After just 2 years, the situation has changed a lot. Previously rich and independent, Shen Kai begged to take him to Yan's school, for which he then never passed the martial arts exam. The teacher did not even listen to the other achievements of the former young gentleman, but advised him to go to an ordinary school. Unexpectedly, the hero met his half-brother Shen Hao-chan. Now he, dressed up in a fashionable suit, was the head of the Shen company. But he passed the exam, which took him 7 years of preparation. The new heir recalled Shen Kai's insult inflicted on him 2 years ago. The new head had absolutely no desire to communicate with his brother, so he just threw a check for 100,000 yuan at his feet, reminding Shen Kai once again that they were from different worlds now. The guards of Shen Hao-tan admired the fact that he entered the University of Martial Arts, and the main character, who can't even graduate from an ordinary school, is no match for him. Already starting to leave, Shen's heir was stopped by Shen Kai, who reminded him that in the past, he had given him 200,000 yuan and now the gentleman threw only 100,000. It wasn't fair. Enraged by such insolence, Shen Hao-tan gave his annoying brother the remaining money and sent the young man away. Riding in a taxi, Shen Kai reflected on how painful and sad he was from such a situation. No matter how carefree he looked, there was longing on his soul. He looked sullenly at the floor of the car, remembering his past happy years of life, which were full of countless purchases and simple joys. The taxi driver who was driving the guy asked him about the light of his depressed mood. Shen Kai studied hand-to-hand combat techniques for 7 years and did not even achieve the required minimum of physical training compared to other masters. That was what weighed him down. The driver, in turn, shared that he is not gifted with special data, so he works as an ordinary taxi driver. The news began to transmit information that a robbery and murder had been committed in Tinshan Park, and according to well-known sources, the killer was a practitioner of the 2nd level of physical martial art. There is a wound on his body, and he is mentally unwell. Those sitting in the car were extremely surprised by the new news. After all, the killer is a 2nd level practitioner. 50 years ago, when the economy was restored, martial artists influenced the world and gradually changed it. With the support and guidance of the state, masters have become the most popular profession in society. The government has divided qualifications into 5 levels from A to E. Those who were able to receive it held a high position and respect compared to ordinary people. However, their practice requires innate talents, and despite the high demands from the government, the number of people who will be able to engage in physical training is very small. Physical fitness is the lowest level in the field of body hardening, which is divided into 9 levels, of which each can significantly increase physical strength and make steel bones and muscles. If someone wants to get out of their usual body and become stronger, then they should practice martial arts. After the life force is restored, it will be distributed into 4 stages: initial, intermediate, advanced, and perfect. Each tempering means a breakthrough to 1 level out of 9. Only the qualified will be able to enter the higher realm. Thus, martial arts and practices complement each other. For example, hand-to-hand combat is taught in basic martial arts schools. After completing the training, it is difficult for people to move to the first level of physical fitness. However, high-level skills are extremely difficult to see in society, and it is also forbidden to teach independently only after entering the university. The driver brought the main character to a posh house. He was surprised and said that even though the guy has no talent in practice, he is still better than ordinary people. Shen Kaian told that this house was left to him by his deceased mother, and he is the only thing he has left. The Shen family rejected the guy because without a talent in martial arts, he has no future. The father gives his son 1,000 yuan every year to pay for his stay. The main character was burdened that now Hao Chan became the heir of his family. After all, he used to be ordinary losers, but 2 years ago he suddenly became stronger. Once in the house, Shen Kaian noticed footprints on the floor and thought that a thief had entered. The hero was at a loss, completely without money and status. There was nothing to steal from him. But on the sofa in the living room, the guy found a young girl. The young man, despite the beautiful appearance of the young lady, decided to continue looking for an uninvited guest. An unknown silhouette appeared in the dark corridor. It was a thief who turned out to be a dangerous second-level criminal from the news. When the guy realized this, he was overtaken by all the horror of understanding the danger of the situation in which he found himself. Such a dangerous person could do anything to him, and no one will save him. The kidnapper began to threaten Shen Kaian with violence, and then, without difficulty, knocked him to the floor and pulled out the last 200,000 yuan from his pockets. He tied up his victim and temporarily left the house. Bound, beaten, experiencing overwhelming pain, the hero began to feel despair. After all, when the thief returns, then definitely deal with him. Such thoughts did not give the young man peace. He had a premonition of imminent death. Unexpectedly, Shen Kaian heard that the launch of the donation system had begun. At first, the main character did not understand where he heard an unknown voice. The fantastic system went on to say that its goal is to cultivate metal multiple times, and submission to the master on the basis of the principle of equality, which can choose an object for the development of Kai. The system is located inside Shen Kaian's mind and does not have an essence on par with the master's spirit. The system was started because it was gradually accumulating the amount of energy to work, and finally it is ready. But due to the increased absorption of energy, it is difficult for the hero to practice the art of war. However, now that the system has started working, it does not require power. The advantages of the system are divided into 2 points. The first is an investment, the transfer of values in the likeness of gold, silver, cash, and their transformation into a cryptocurrency necessary for Kai. The second is cultivation through cultivation. After all, the skill that the master possesses has been improved. The limitations of this ability are that valuables such as coins, banknotes, bank cards, etc. belonging to the master can only be absorbed by touching them. Also, to raise the level in a certain art, the master must possess at least the initial level. The main character has the current level of hand-to-hand combat. Initial. The system requires 10,000 yuan to advance to the intermediate level, 100,000 to advanced, and 1 million to achieve perfection. Shen Kaian said that if the system had started earlier, 2 years ago, he would have been a master of the maximum level. After all, at that time the guy was still with money and could give as much as he wanted. But the young man did not despair. Looking at the knife lying next to him, a certain plan matured in his head. Going back in time, Shen Kaian remembers his father's words that, without progress in martial arts, he is a complete incompetence and disappointment. Everyone thought that the young master was an ordinary child who was eating and waiting for death. Therefore, he could only pretend that he didn't care, thereby deceiving himself. Then, he started resisting with himself. It was a desire to overcome the limits of their abilities, to go beyond what was allowed, show this world what it's worth. But as soon as the father of the Shen family found out that his illegitimate son Hao Tian suddenly became a martial arts genius and reached the heavenly Kai level, he immediately abandoned his rightful heir. After cutting the binding ropes with a knife, Shen Kaian heard that the thief had unexpectedly returned. He realized that he would not have time to escape. Therefore, the guy decided to use a card with living expenses, asking the system to transfer all funds into virtual currency and raise it immediately to an advanced level. He screamed as loudly as he could. However, the balance was not enough to advance to the advanced level. The main character was very upset and angry that he didn't have enough 700 yuan because he can't even reach the average level. And his pursuer already has a second level of physical fitness, which is very problematic. Shen Kaian is at a complete loss and does not know what to do next. He even took out all the remaining change from his pockets and asked the system to take it at least. Thus, she accepted 462 yuan but was still 200 short. The guy didn't have a penny left. Unexpectedly, the system found a goal for the contribution. It was the money that the unconscious girl had on the couch. She looked exhausted and exhausted. To convert someone else's funds, you need to contact the owner of the money directly for a certain period of time. It is forbidden to interrupt the process, and the time depends on the amount of conversion. But the young man decided not to hesitate and checked the young lady's clothes for the presence of at least some funds. So, he found a pocket in which 314 yuan was found. Since they do not belong to the owner, the system will need a minute to convert. The guy frantically begged her to hurry up, because the girl could wake up at any moment. The returning thief was surprised to see a young man running away from the place. After all, he could not so easily untie the rope and free himself. This fact caused the man to panic. After a while, the kidnapper found Shen Qian behind the sofa, and he had to show himself because the young man was counting on the time for which the stranger's money was to be converted. Already starting the fight with the thief, the system accepted the money and raised the level of the guy's hand-to-hand combat to average. It was a rapid leap in strength. The man was decently amazed at the suddenly awakened strength of the guy, because he was able to give a worthy rebuff to the brazen intruder. He even thought that the young man had deliberately shown weakness in order to lower his vigilance and wait for an opportunity to escape. But fortunately, Shen Qian just managed to raise his level in time, otherwise he would have been in trouble. At the same time, it was still very difficult and almost impossible to defeat the thief. After all, his level was still an order of magnitude higher. Therefore, the young man offered the uninvited guest to leave the house quietly and promised not to call the police. But the kidnapper launched a furious attack, shouting that he was not going to bargain. Thus, he inflicted a serious wound to the guy's neck. The former young gentleman began to bleed heavily. The thief was already anticipating his victory, simultaneously calling his opponent a pathetic scum with an average level of hand-to-hand combat. The man behaved too brazenly and presumptuously. Shen Qian, unexpectedly, struck with his shoulder right in the chest of the enemy, causing his indignation and a fit of weakness. The young man replied to the thief that he had been engaged in military hand-to-hand combat for many years, so he could not be useless. The enraged kidnapper decided to show the youngster a real martial art. He gathered all his strength and will in his hands. His eyes became filled with hatred and a desire to kill. Once behind the guy, the man struck a bloody hawk strike right in the back, thereby stunning the opponent. The attack was truly fierce and powerful, knocking Shen Qian into the wall. But the blow also affected the thief himself, opening his old wound. Deciding that he had already dealt with the guy, the kidnapper relaxed and was ready to leave. But Shen Qian's system found funds belonging to him in the amount of 200,000 yuan, and the hero will replenish his account, advancing his strength to a new rank. The thief was extremely surprised and excited, because his money began to disappear, and the guy's strength grew. The young man was all lit up with light. He decided to immediately upgrade the level of hand-to-hand combat, which required 100,000 yuan. At the moment of the fight, the girl woke up. She looked confused and surprised by what was happening, but decided to warn the guy about caution. The young man's hand glowed with red rays from the overwhelming force. He dealt the thief a crushing blow to the heart, calling the technique a mountain-crushing blow. The opponent lost miserably because of the money stolen from the guy. It lay pathetically under his feet. Thanks to the deposit system, Shen Qian defeated his first martial arts practitioner. And also, he met that girl named Wu Jin, who promised to help him in the future. After all, he had saved her. The young beauty was sincerely grateful to her savior, bowing to him. The girl had bright blue eyes and long blonde hair. She is dressed in simple casual clothes. The lady did not inspire confidence, but there was kindness and strength of spirit in her. The guy decided to ask a new friend if she has money. But realizing that the girl had no money, I was a little disappointed. Suddenly, a sharp pain knocked the young man off his feet. Piercing him through, he fell to the floor. Shen Qian felt a familiar, uncontrollable feeling of hunger. Unable to move, he remembered Wu Jin's communication to help him. The girl was worried about the guy and did not understand what was happening to him. But I agreed to help. Thus, Shen was already eating more than a dozen plates of rice, kindly prepared by Wu Jin. The guy explained that he himself did not understand how this was happening. It's just that at some indefinite moment he begins to feel terribly hungry and cannot control his appetite. There was already a mountain of empty plates in front of him, and the girl kept bringing new portions. The young man ate everything without a trace with great desire. Wu Jin was a little puzzled, because she thought that Shen Qian would ask for something other than food. It was the first time she had seen such a hungry guy, who calmed down only after eating a plate of rice, which is unknown by the count. He didn't eat very carefully. Apart from himself, everything was in the food. The young man thanked him for the treat and said that he did not always eat like that. He just can't control it. Now, it was necessary to decide what to do with the body of the kidnapper. Shen Qian asked Wu Jin to help get rid of him, but the girl was scared and preferred to wash the dishes in the kitchen. She wasn't ready for such things yet. Too modest and decent, according to the routine when killing monsters. The losing man had to give something to the guy. It was unlikely that he had money, but there might be a set of scrolls with martial arts secrets. As a result, the hero found the Hawk's bloody strike technique, which he had used on the guy earlier, on the corpse. This technique is a strong and powerful attack that can make a huge contribution to Shenkain's achievement. Blood Hawk Strike can help you advance to the second level of martial art, and this is definitely better than a weak hand-to-hand combat skill. The main character felt that he definitely should master a new skill and actively use it. The young man also wanted to check how much this technique costs, but the system was unable to evaluate it since the owner is not familiar with it. Shenkain was clearly upset by this fact because he hoped to learn the ability faster, thereby becoming stronger. Due to the inability to learn the technique, the young man was forced to leave it on the shelf until he had money. He was sad to do it, but there was no choice. Shenkain decided to find out from the system the reason for his severe recent hunger. After all, it was really a strange incident. She replied that by using the system for practice, it is possible to reduce time, but it is impossible not to take into account energy consumption since the system extracts power from the host to make a breakthrough in the technique of martial art. This answer surprised the hero. He thought that practicing martial skills requires a lot of activity. Under normal circumstances, it is necessary to accumulate it over days and months in order to develop step by step. The young man made a sharp breakthrough in hand-to-hand combat from the initial to the advanced level, and this was reflected by the fact that energy was drained even from his blood. The development of such a technique to a perfect level can lead the owner to death. Therefore, Shenkain realized that in the future he should be more careful and not need to rise so quickly, because it could kill him. The hero wanted to find out from the system what would happen if he made a breakthrough immediately to the perfect level, to which she replied that she could not predict the consequences, because this had not happened before. However, if there is not enough energy, the host will die of exhaustion. And also, the system reminded the young man that now he does not have enough balance for such an elevation. The guy was terrified of such assumptions and consequences. He decided that in the future he should stock up on high-calorie food and high-quality pills. All this was necessary in order not to simply die. The young man wanted to stay alive, and for this he needed money, which he did not have. When Shenkain was thinking about where to hide the corpse of his enemy, people suddenly burst into his house, armed with machine guns. They blew up the entrance and told no one to move. The fighters looked dangerous and hostile. They were dressed in camouflage suits protected by a vest. Wu Jin, just at this moment, finished washing the dishes and went to the guy from the kitchen. A picture of Shenkain surrounded by special forces rose in front of her. The armed men considered the girl an accomplice and also seized her. At the police station, the young man told how it really was. After listening, the law enforcement officer said that the government highly appreciated the actions of the guy and the girl who helped detain the martial artist. Also, they felt that it would be an example for the young people of the new era, and they would understand that there is no need to be afraid and dare to fight. After making sure that Shenkain and Wu Jin came to their senses, the policeman reported that the young people behaved quite bravely when detaining the criminal. Therefore, government agencies are obliged to give them a proper reward. The police decided to give the heroes a medal for bravery and give them a bonus of 10,000 yuan. Shenkain said he had objections about the reward, because the situation at the crime scene was extremely dangerous. The criminal threatened to kill the hostage, and he was not afraid and had a duel with him at the highest level. The fight was not for life, but for death. The slightest mistake could lead to an irreparable tragedy, because the killer was furious and promised that he would destroy everything around. That's why the guy wanted to get more reward for his act, to which the employee said that it should be discussed with the authorities first. Drawing attention to the modest and kind Wu Jin, the policeman decided to offer her a personal apology and offered to provide any help. The girl mentally supported her savior and demanded to increase her reward amount because she doesn't need anything else. She still felt indebted to the guy, so at least in money she could express her gratitude. As a result, the police officer gave the heroes another 50,000 yuan bonus. Shenkain considered him a stingy person because he hoped to beg for more money. Wu Jin kept following the hero, which surprised him, because the girl received her reward of 10,000 yuan. She decided to remind her friend that he took 300 yuan out of her pocket then and has not yet returned the money. The guy was amazed at this statement, because he saved her life and now she is acting quite mercantile. But the girl replied that she earns money with great difficulty. That's why she asks so much. Shen Kang received a call from his former friend and assistant Zio Wang, who reported that he had heard about his troubles. He advised him to bow down to Master Hao Chan. The new young master is having a party tomorrow, so Zio Wang said that Shen Kang should go there and say a few good words to his stepbrother. After all, this is a great opportunity to be in a favorable position with the Shen family again. An old friend of the guy remembered and did not forget his kindness. So, Zio Wang really hopes that he won't be stubborn anymore. But Shen Kaian told him that there was no need to give unsolicited advice, especially after he joined and began serving Hao Chan. Also, the former master warned that it is no longer necessary to help him with such instructions in the future. After that, he hurriedly hung up the phone without letting him finish. Wu Jin asked who it was who called, and the young man immediately replied to her that it was his former acquaintance. The guy decided to offer the girl a job because she was talking about the need for money. The lady was very embarrassed and gave out that she was not going to do anything illegal. Shen Kaian said that all he needed to get information for him. The young people agreed to meet at the bus stop in the middle of the working day. Due to the fact that the young man was late, Wu Jin already had time to think that the guy decided to deceive her. The poor girl didn't know what to do next if he didn't come. But Shen Kaian, after a little delay, still arrived at the meeting. He apologized and said that the young lady came too early. The guy offered the girl a part-time job, and the place of work was a luxurious mansion of his family. Wu Jin was greatly amazed by this fact, because the house looked huge and majestic, giving away the status and wealth of its owner. The young man told the girl in secret that he was actually the son of the owner of this mansion and was going to become the heir again. The girl replied that there are no such pathetic rich sons as the hero. Nevertheless, it was time to get to work. Meanwhile, a large-scale event was taking place at the Sheng family mansion. The gathered guests actively discussed the new main son of the family. There were rumors that Hao Tian had already reached the 3rd level of practice, which is why he gathered them all here to show off. The visitors who arrived considered him an arrogant young man, unworthy of such honors. A beautiful woman got out of a magnificent red car. She was dressed in a chic dark blue dress. Her hair was brown, and her eyes expressed anger and irritation. The people around her didn't even dare to approach the lady. The guard who met her addressed her as Miss Liang and informed her that the young gentleman had been expecting a lady for a long time. The caretaker bowed politely, but she didn't even pay attention to him. This behavior caused indignation on the part of the guard. He thought that she was just lucky to meet Master Hao. Almost sneaking into the house, Shen Kaian and Wu Jin noticed a standing guard. The guy told the girl that she should just listen to his instructions. She was very surprised that the son of the owner of the mansion could not safely enter his house. In order for the lady not to ask any more strange questions, the young man promised to pay her 500 yuan more. She immediately agreed to it. Money comes first. The watchman was no longer waiting for new guests, when suddenly an unknown girl ran up to him, shouting that her puppy Ziobai had run into this house. Wu Jin made a cute face and began tearfully begging the guard to let her inside, because the dog is her family. Without Ziobai, she would not be able to live on. He was very important to her. But the strict guard did not let the young lady pass in any case. He resolutely refused the girl, despite all her requests. The man even promised to use force if Wu Jin did not abandon his attempt to enter the mansion. At this time, Shen Kaian slipped unnoticed through the gate of the house. He put on a dark jacket and a hood so that no one would recognize or suspect him for sure. The guests who arrived talked about the merits of the current heir of the family, namely, that Hao Tian is just a genius in martial arts. And also, they were wondering why Shen Kaian's former main son ran away. Such rumors clearly upset the young man. He wasn't in the mood to listen to all this dirty slander. Hao Tian himself took the stage. He welcomed everyone who appreciates this meeting. Everyone present at this event. From now on, he will consider his friends in the Sheng family. The guests began to talk about the fact that the heir just wants to lure everyone to his side. Hao Tian continued his speech. He said that he invited everyone today because he is already a student of the University of Martial Arts and all those present are children of a new generation. The heir also believes that in the future they will have opportunities for cooperation. Hao Tian introduced Ms. Liang Ming, informing about the cooperation of Sheng Corporation with Liang Corporation. The visitors of the event were very surprised by the new news, and everyone began to understand the reason for Miss Liang's presence. The stormy attention did not confuse the lady. She held herself firmly and confidently. The assistant of the Sheng family, who came up to her, told her to say something to Hao Tian's statement. Sighing heavily, she was about to insert her speech when suddenly an unknown voice interrupted her. It was Shen Kaian who shouted to Shen Tian that he had difficulty finding his brother, and Mrs. Liang was amazed at such an impudent act of the guy. Equally surprised, Hao Tian convulsively distorted the source of the voice in the crowd. He did not understand who dared to interrupt his long-awaited meeting and disrupt the speech of a future business partner. The crowd was also amazed. Everyone turned to the impudent young man. Then it became clear who it was. Shen Kaian took off his hood and with a smile told Hao Tian that he had to do him a small favor. The people immediately recognized the former heir, but decided not to interfere and just continue to watch the show. The young man began to complain to his brother about a difficult fate. He told about how difficult his life had been lately. At this, the new heir told the guards to catch the guy. They began to surround him from all sides. Shen Kaian jumped on the common table, saying that his brother had no conscience at all because he used to think that he had at least a drop of virtue left. The guests mockingly watched what was happening, namely, behind Shen Kaian running across the table, shouting that Hao Tian is one of those who hides a knife behind a smile and how ungrateful he is. The guy sincerely wished that in the future people would also treat him meanly and lowly. Hao Tian decided to stop this performance and stop humiliating him. He asked the young man what he wanted and why he came at all. Following the order of the heir, the guards had to retreat and let Shen Kaian go. The guy reminded Hao Tian of the old years of the past, when he took care of his younger brother and changed his diapers. For this, Shen Qian was now asking for help. Having received permission to speak, the young man said that he was experiencing difficulties, namely such that he could not afford to eat properly, not to mention the existing debts. And also, a collector called him, who promised to break the guy's leg if he didn't pay. Shen Qian gave out that it was cruel and unfair, so his brother should help him with financial difficulties, promising to help his brother not get into trouble in the future. The guy asked for 2 million yuan, justifying himself by saying that he owed a lot. Hao Tian thought that if it wasn't for this event, he would have beaten Shen Qian to death. But under the pressure of society, he could not do so and could not fail to respond to the request of the young man. After all, it was necessary to preserve the dignity of the Sheng family, and not to go into conflict with the former heir. With a polite expression on his face, Hao Tian told people that he was sorry for making a fool of himself, and also that some negligence in the upbringing of family members is his fault. After all, he is the one who deals with family property. The new heir jumped onto the table, just like Shen Qian. With a proud look, he wrote out a check for 500,000 yuan in front of everyone and threw it at his brother's feet, saying that this money would definitely be enough to live in peace for several years. Shen Qian was disappointed and called Hao Tian stingy and heartless. The young man was clearly strained and hurt by this attitude of the heir to him, because he humiliatingly threw a statement with money directly to him. The hero only grinned in response to such audacity. He proudly replied to the heir that he did not seem to have received proper upbringing in childhood, demonstrating such behavior. Shen Qian decided to remind his brother that valuables like this check should not be spoiled. After all, even if you are rich today, it is unknown what will happen tomorrow and what can be expected. The young man took the check with the money and put it in his pocket, and Hao Tian added that he hopes for the manifestation of reason from his older brother. After all, the Sheng family will not support someone like him forever, which means that he should find a job as soon as possible and stop idling. Unexpectedly, the new heir took Shen Qian by the shoulder and with a fierce look put the poor fellow on the table, thereby completely suppressing his power. This was the fierce power of the third level of practice that Hao Tian had mastered. The guy couldn't move, but the old one wouldn't even be able to stand on his feet. He said that his brother didn't need to break the table for 500,000 yuan if he just wanted to kill him. To this, the new head dismissed Shen Qian, saying that he had only done a massage after seeing the young man's weak and helpless body. All the people around grinned, appreciating the cruel joke, and the humiliated hero considered the massage too powerful. Hao Tian politely started asking the guy to leave the house, because he had already taken the money. With his limbs shaking from the pain, Shen Qian, warmly thanking his brother, began to hurry away. The assistance of the heir offered the owner to deal with the persistent relative, because he is always pestering for money and asking for help. It certainly wasn't a bad prospect, but Hao Tian told him to leave the guy alone and clean up the broken table, because the party wasn't over yet. And the thoughts of the new head was that his blow directly affects the heart, which means that the young man will no longer be able to train. Therefore, he would advise the annoying brother not to spend the given funds on something useless. Leaving, the main character began to think that what kind of heir is cruel. After all, he almost suffered from his crushing attack. He hoped that no one would guess his progress in martial arts, and the young man considered his public performance worthy. There was a thought in my head that everything went according to plan. Everything is as it should be. He got his money. With the funds received, the hero saw himself as a future winner. Now he will definitely finish with Hao Tian, who so unworthily insulted him and took his place in the family. At least, the young man had the slightest hope and confidence in his own success. At the entrance, Wu Jin was waiting for him, all chilled from the cold, who immediately asked if the guy had got the necessary information. She even thought that Shen Qian had decided to run away with her reward. But the main character is not such a person. He honestly fulfilled his promise and gave the lady a reward of 1,000 yuan. For him it was a small amount of money, and the girl was very happy with the amount received. Now she was convinced that the young man was the son of a rich man and called him generous. He just sighed heavily, saying that real rich people are not like him. Wu Jin abruptly remembered that the guy still owed her the stolen 314 yuan. And also, he promised to add another 500 for the task, which means he had to give her 1,500 yuan. Shen Qian was surprised, because he thought that giving the girl 1,000 yuan would be quite enough. He said that from now on he would call her a miser. The action takes place in Yanbei High School. The bell rang, heralding the beginning of the lesson, which means it's time for the students to hurry up to class. After all, this educational institution is severely punished for tardiness or absenteeism. Naturally, no one wanted to grab a fine. Before the students rushing to their classes, an amazing sight arose. There were qualifying exams for the elite class. Two guys with a sinister aura were fighting among themselves. One of them had brown hair and looked quite calm and judiciously assessed the situation. The other one had blonde hair. Anger was burning from his eyes. He looked incredibly hostile and aggressive. The blonde guy was ready to deliver a powerful punch, when suddenly his opponent abruptly disappeared from view. The stunned young man missed and now heard the voice of his opponent right above him. The dark-haired man told him that his position was weak, and all the strength needed to be released in a blow, adding his victory with a rather hard kick in the stomach. A guy named Fen Da-wai flew into the wall and suffered a crushing defeat, which the judge concluded. Also, he added that Gao Ziobo would be next. A young man from the jury decided to ask the director if it was too strict to ask the teacher to personally select student. After all, even if the teacher is restrained at the first level, students cannot cope with even 3 of his techniques. For them it is too much. The director replied that there had never been such a thing in educational practice before, but once one student decided to give a bribe, so they had to resort to changes in the rules. The head of the educational institution began a story about the events that took place 2 years ago, when students competed with each other in exam preparation classes to determine their outstanding talents for recruitment to the school. Every year, many students took part, even those who were not accepted to the higher school of martial arts. And as a result, a man named Shen Kaian relied on his family's money and smoked all his opponents. The director was furious while telling this story. He went on to say that in the end, this student didn't even get into the worst martial arts school, which became a universal disgrace of Yanbei High School. That's why they changed the rules. Now the teacher personally evaluates each of the students. The jury assistant was only surprised by the cunning of the guy from the story. After all, only a spoiled son of a rich father could pull this off. Meanwhile, Shen Kaian sneaked to the front entrance of Yanbei High School. There was a sleeping guard sitting there, whose martial arts level was equal to the second. Therefore, the young man thought that he should be more careful, because if he made even a little noise, the watchman would instantly notice him. Climbing over the fence. When falling down, the guy accidentally stepped on a nearby branch, thereby giving out a loud crack. Shen Kaian was scared and didn't know where to go. The guard reacted instantly. He immediately came out of his booth and started shouting, thinking that this was a student who decided to skip classes. His cry was full of determination and anger, because the man was torn from a sweet dream. But all he saw in front of him was a girl, Liang Ming's disciple. She apologized for interrupting the guard's lunch. The man immediately changed his face at the sight of the young lady. First of all, he said that it was not her fault and she should not worry. The watchman decided to find out if the girl had passed the entrance exam to the elite class. After waiting for a positive response, he called Liang Ming a very talented young person. The guard suggested that the girl would definitely surpass him in the future with such successes. He said goodbye to her, informing her that he would continue his work. Shen Kaian let out a sigh of relief. He followed Liang Ming to thank the lady for saving him. If it wasn't for her, he would definitely be in trouble. The girl asked the guy about the purpose of his stay at school. He replied that he wanted to try his luck in the qualifying exams. Liang Ming told the young man that the rules had changed this year, and he would no longer be able to bribe someone. Shen Kaian showed her his sincere desire and willingness to show all his strength. Now, he can only count on himself and possible luck. The girl only added that she would be waiting for him in class, and the guy thought that the lady helped him again, and he didn't even repay her for the last time. It upset him. The brown-haired teacher who defeated all his students was interested in whether anyone else wanted to take the test. He looked extremely serious and strict. His energy screamed about its strength and power. The students talked about how ruthless the teacher was, because those who lost were beaten to death. Of course, none of the remaining students wanted to repeat their fate. The formidable teacher said that this year he got the most incompetent course of all that he had ever taught. Finally, he added that if there are no more people willing to take the entrance exams, then everyone can disperse. At the last moment, Shen Kaian appeared, causing sincere misunderstanding on the part of the other students of the school. The teacher himself at first did not even understand who gave the voice. The hero boldly went to class, repeating his desire to take part in the exams. At Yanbei High School, Shen Kaian's name was often mentioned. He was set as an example as a bad student, who is definitely not worth looking up to. The rest of the students, who have listened to it many times, have already memorized his name by heart. Almost every freshman knew him. Some teachers even talked about the fact that if it wasn't for the rules, they would definitely have dealt with him. And now, the joyful Shen Kaian came to school again showed a desire to pass the exam. The examination board was greatly shocked, remembering perfectly well how it ended last time. They didn't want to let something like this happen again. After all, because of this student, they even had to change the rules of the test. Especially the director was dissatisfied with the possible prospect of the young man's return to school. Shen Kaian, noticing him, said that he thought he had been resting in retirement for a long time. Such a statement even more exasperated the head. He almost broke down in front of all the students. Only an assistant could keep him in place. The students were discussing the arrival of the well-known Shen Kaian. His school exploits have been on the radar for as long as 2 years. They were even interested in looking at the one about whom teachers so often talk. The teacher leading the exam immediately recognized Shen Kaian, and the guy himself thought that after finishing school, he became much more famous. The director asked the guy about what he was doing here if he had learned for a long time, and the young man replied that he wanted to take part in selected competitions for admission to the elite class. The enraged head of the school told him not to even think about it. But Shen Kai continued to insist, reinforcing his words with the extracurricular rules of the school, according to which students after graduation have the right to re-enroll by taking part in the certification. The director insisted on his own, because Yanbei High School is a place where you can practice martial arts and not engage in idleness, and the guy was clearly not suitable for such classes. Therefore, the leader insisted that Shen Kai find another field to gain knowledge. The guy has already started thinking about complaining to the management, when suddenly the voice of that strictly teacher Lin was heard. He put everyone present into a stupor, informing them that the young man could participate in the exam. The teacher explained his behavior by saying that he had heard about Shen Kang for a long time, but he did not manage to cross paths with him because he was teaching other classes. The teacher said that most of all he despises people who look down on everyone because of their condition. He also added that he was very sorry that he could not teach the young man personally. Lin decided to let Shen Kai know everything he was worth today, called him trash that tainted the history of Yanbei High School. The teacher mentioned that the guy was played by his own family, on which he depended. One of the students believed that the teacher would beat the young man to death. Others say that Shen Kai planned to give another bribe and calmly pass on. Shen Kai decided to make a bet on money with the cheeky teacher, since he looks at rich children from high. The guy suggested to Lin that if he passed the exam, he would have to pay him 10,000 yuan. And if he loses, he will give the teacher 100,000. Then, Lin will definitely not be in harm's way. Their conversation was interrupted by the director, who reminded the men that they were on an important exam and not at the bazaar. The head strictly forbade teacher Lin Jai to participate in such a thing. Teacher Lin said that he would pay the young man the same amount as he promised to give if he won. He also reminded the director that the student can also refuse his bet, and the teacher can't help himself. Because the guy is a student and he is a teacher, Lin Jai cannot refuse under the gaze of the students, as his own dignity is under threat. The head of the school had no choice but to agree, and also, he had to remind the teacher to strictly control his powers no higher than the first level, and if the student's life is in danger, he will be forced to intervene. To which Lin Jai responded positively and promised not to kill Shen Kai. The director decided to warn the young man that even if Lin restrains himself, his experience and skills far exceed his imagination. The manager only hoped that the guy would be able to cope on his own and wished him success. Shen Kai promised to take responsibility for his actions. The students started talking about how they had never seen teacher Lin so angry before. They were really scared, knowing what he was capable of. After all, if they don't kill him, they will definitely cripple him. But girl Liang Ming was once again struck by the unusual performance of the guy and was greatly intrigued. After all, only he is capable of making such a mess. None of the observers hoped for Shen Kai's victory. It was simply impossible, considering who his opponent was. In the ring, the former heir of the Shen family and an experienced teacher Lin Jai. The referee standing between them abruptly lowered his hand, announcing the start of the fight. Lin Jai is a teacher with an E2 certificate from Yanbei High School, Level 6. His opponent, Shen Kai, is a high school student of Yanbei, who is rumored to have only recently started practicing martial arts. The judge officially introduced the rivals to each other. From teacher Lin came the aura of a man who is determined to win. His strength and tenacity could be felt from a kilometer away. His opponent looked tense and anxious, seeing such a serious opponent in front of him. The students looking at it knew for sure that an experienced and wise teacher would win. No one could think of a different outcome of events. The first technique teacher Lin decided to use was 1,000 Buddha flowers. It was quite a powerful technique, especially for the first time. Its meaning is to create the illusion of 1,000 hands from which it is impossible to defend. One of the exam supervisors mentioned that earlier, Lin Jai used this attack as a third technique. Many hands appeared around the teacher, which were in different poses, ready to strike from all sides at the same time. He didn't want to delay and worked quickly. Shen Kai repelled the attack with only one hand, saying that it was useless. The audience was amazed to see how easily the guy blocked all the movements of the teacher. They thought that the young man could now clearly see his opponent's maneuvers. The teacher noticed Shen Kai's good attentiveness, because he himself was quite surprised. Teasing Lin Jai, the guy asked him to use a more powerful technique, because this is not all that he is capable of. The young man expected a stronger attack in order to quickly finish with the surrender. The teacher only said that the guy should be less arrogant and observe the rules of decency. Shen Kai revealed that since teacher Lin despises the rich, he would treat him the same way. The students understood that the young man only wanted to anger the teacher, but the examiner's rage would not bring him any benefit, but would complicate it. Now, everyone was really worried about Shen Kai's life. Starting to gather his will into a fist, Lin Jai said that he uses the following technique: the fist of the white monkey. His eyes were blazing with indignation, and the atmosphere in the air was heating up. The director said that if the 1,000 buds of Buddha is designed for attentiveness, then the fist of the white monkey is for strength. Even the slightest deviation will never be able to block the blow. His assistant got scared and said that the complexity of the attack was too high and exceeded the assessment requirement, to which the head replied that it was high time to teach the arrogant Shen Kang a lesson, since he knows no boundaries. The teacher quickly jumped up in the air, pushing off with one foot, and furiously went on the attack. Shen Qian began to think that even if he trained in hand-to-hand combat, the level would remain the same. And without combat experience, it will be very difficult to reach an advanced rank. A prerequisite for advancement in this field is practice, not the study of technology, so a small number of people are thinking about the hand-to-hand style of combat. The main character considered himself an exception to the rule. After all, the improvement of the system is mandatory, regardless of how he practices or studies the technique. Therefore, the guy can really win. Hope and faith in success settled in him. When the opponent's fist was approaching, Shen Qian said that he was using the 8th technique of the martial art, a technique called fist rotation. Grabbing the teacher's hand, the guy caused some changes in his movements. The young man took the chance and jumped away from the failed technique to the side. The teacher missed and hit the floor with his fist. The students were shocked again by Shen Qian's successful tactics. Even the observing examiners were amazed. The assistant director said that the guy used his fighting technique to neutralize the attack power of the white monkey. In turn, the head of the school thought that the young man had reached an incredible level, and his hand-to-hand combat was not only advanced, but also the most difficult type of combat. Astonished, Lin Jai noticed that the guy had an advanced level, along with combat skills. Shen Qian said that they were wrong to think that he was a weakling who was not capable of learning martial arts. But in his mind he had that he almost lost, despite the fact that the teacher restrains his strength. The guy was tired and covered in abrasions. The young man told everyone that he knew about the bad gossip behind his back. Namely, about the fact that he is just a spoiled rich son who knows nothing about martial arts. He also added that he was here not just to win a bet, but to prove his strength and honesty. Shen Qian sincerely wanted to protect his family's honor. The guy again asked his opponent to use his strongest technique. From such bold and correct words, the observing students began to gradually change their opinion about Shen Qian. They thought that they had really misunderstood him all this time. Some of the girls even began to like the young man. Shen Qian reminded the teacher that if he received another blow, he would lose 100,000 to him. The teacher understood everything and apologized to the young man for not taking him seriously before. To show his respect, he decided to use the strongest punch he could afford at the first level. The director began to be extremely indignant, telling Lin Ju that he had lost his mind. Because at the qualifying competitions you can't use the support of the great mantra from an advanced martial art. His assistant interrupted his leader, reminding him that they pay the teacher's salary to her wife, so he wants to win so much to get 100,000 yuan. And that was a good reason. The head of the school explained that the strength of the support of the white mantra is extremely great, but it has a significant drawback. It accumulates energy for a long time and it can be easily avoided by those who have rich experience. Shen Qian has an advanced level in hand-to-hand martial art, so he has it. But the assistant explained that since the guy is constantly dodging to save his money, the most appropriate way for teacher Lin to win is to use this technique. The teacher had already prepared to strike a decisive blow, saying at the same time that it was only for the sake of money. He didn't want the young man to hold a grudge against him. Shen Qian visibly tensed up, starting to peer into every action of the examiner. Meanwhile, the teacher completed his technique with a powerful kick. The judges and the audience did not understand what was going on and who finally won. Some even got up from their seats to personally observe everything. Unexpectedly for everyone, there was a clap of hands. It was Shen Qian who was praising his opponent for a terrific punch. The guy said that the attack scared him to death, saved only by the fact that he reacted quickly. The students couldn't believe their eyes. It seemed that they were all petrified. Teacher Lin was also amazed by the young man's winnings. Shen Qian was already about to leave, explaining that he had already withstood 3 blows. The examiner was furious. He told the guy to shut up and recalled his words that he was not going to shy away from the techniques, whatever they were, and also remembered the stories of the young man about the honor and dignity of the family. Shen Qian replied that it was just a joke. He didn't understand why everyone believed his words so easily. Moreover, he was kicked out of the Sheng family, but in fact he thinks that all the guys from there are not really men, judging by their actions and behavior. The girl Liang Ming at first thought that the young man had changed, but it turned out that he had only fooled everyone. Enraged, Lin Ju offered the guy to take another blow of the support of the great mantra, if he had any conscience left. Shen Qian easily agreed, but at the same time set one condition. It consisted in the fact that the amount of the bet increases. The teacher will owe 100,000 if he loses. The director stopped the men from the next bet in time. He agreed with the guy's victory. After all, 3 strikes are sustained, and according to the rules, Shen Qian passes the test. The old leader had no other choice but to accept and accept. Teacher Lin was against it and wanted to continue the duel, but the director said that he understood him, but as a teacher, he should set an example to others by following the rules. Lin Ju understood everything. The owner of the school added that the 2 rivals made a bet during the qualifying exams, thereby violating the rules of the Yanbei school. The director issued such a verdict that Teacher Lin was suspended from his activities for a week, and Shen Qian was fined 50,000 yuan, which will be directly deducted from the amount of the result of the bet from Lin Jai. The guy resisted this decision because he earns money with his skills, and today everything went exactly according to plan. He considered it unfair to take away his earnings. The headmaster quickly reassured Shen Kaian by saying that Lin Jai would be an elite class teacher in the future, and since the young man will study there, it is better for him to cool his ardor and calm down. The guy said that he suddenly realized the importance of the absence of monetary disagreements between students and teachers. The head only noticed the calculating train of thought of the main character. A little puzzled examiner approached Shen Kang and asked for his bank account number, because he was ready to participate in the bet and now does not refuse to transfer money. With a friendly attitude, the guy handed the required sheet, thanking the teacher in advance. Taking it, Lin Ju said that he would not remain in debt to the young man, and with the beginning of the school year, he would definitely take care of him. Shen Kaian was a little wary, because he hadn't even started studying yet, and he had already quarreled with the teacher. The guy was scared to think about what might happen in the future. The next day, in an elite class, kind classmates met a young man with a bucket of water, which never reached him. Shen Kaian only told them what a naive act it was. The students called the guy a pathetic coward. They reminded him that he should be ashamed of his antics at the qualifiers. They didn't understand how such a person could enter an elite class. The hero came into the classroom to ridicule in words that everyone was just sorry for him. The students believed that Shen Kaian was guilty of suspending teacher Lin from lessons for the next week. A chair was broken at the desk that the guy wanted to occupy. He couldn't even guess if it was done on purpose, but Lang Ming invited the young man to sit next to her. After all, there was an empty seat next to her. The others began to tell the girl that she was still compassionate to newcomers, and the hero decided to apologize to her. A teacher entered the classroom and announced that he would be replacing teacher Lin. Shen Kaian decided to ask the lady if she was afraid to communicate with him. Yang Ming replied that she didn't care, because she was here like an outcast. After discussing their elite class, the guy and the girl shook hands as a sign of greeting and perhaps the beginning of friendship. It was raining heavily outside when Shen Kaian returned to his mansion after school. He began to recall the events of a hard day's work. Namely, getting to know a new teacher who told the guy that he missed a lot of classes and now all the preparations for theoretical exams need to be done again. This information was given to the young man hard, because he thought that practical skills were enough for successful studies. The mentor replied that such skills, of course, are useful, but he planned to hone them so that the guy could use unlimited power in the future. Shen Kaian promised to study hard and memorize all new material. The new teacher impressed him as a demanding person who knows his job well. He didn't seem biased towards Shen Kang, but only wanted the guy to keep up with the other students. Anyway, the young man thought that homework was too much for him. He thought it would be great if someone helped him write it. It was night outside. Unexpectedly, Wu Jin broke into Shen Kang, who, with fear on her face, asked the guy for help. She hurriedly went into the house, saying that she would explain everything later, because someone was following her now. They started knocking loudly on the front door, and the girl begged the young man not to let himself be caught and hidden in the house. Wu Jin hid in the mansion, and the hero had to open the door to uninvited guests. Several grown men were standing on the threshold. They looked intimidating and hostile. The men said they were looking for a student. They saw her running to his house. Shen Kaian told them that he did not understand who they were talking about, asked them from which family, because it was simply inappropriate to ask about a girl at such a late hour. The young man asked the guys to leave his place. One of the men began to whisper to their boss that the mansion looks expensive, and the guy is rich, so they should not give trouble to the owner. The leader of the intruders folded his hands and told Shen Kang that they were Brother Lie's people, and that student owed them money. The formidable man hoped for the understanding of the young man. The guy replied that he definitely would not help the poor, who are not even able to pay their debt. The hero felt that he had become well accustomed to the image of a rich man. The gang leader admitted that Shen Kaian was right. He apologized for disturbing the gentleman at such a late hour and said goodbye. But the other members of the group were clearly dissatisfied with this behavior of the man, because they clearly saw the girl near this house. He reassured them, saying that everything was fine, because they could go back and check this guy on their sources, and then decide what to do next. After closing the door, Wu Jin immediately started asking Shen Kaian if the uninvited guests had left. He told her to stop talking nonsense and tell her what was going on. The girl told that her father was addicted to alcohol, as well as to gambling. When he's not drinking at home, it means he's playing for money, Wu Jin explained. She went on to say that every time he needs to pay off his debts, he runs away. And this time, without knowing it, he contacted influential people, and when they broke into their house to grab their father, they stumbled upon her. The men just knocked the door off their feet, thereby greatly scaring the girl. They said that since dad ran away, then let his daughter pay, because the money has been waiting for a long time. Therefore, Wu Jin had to run away from home, and the only place where she could hide was Shen Kaian's mansion. She said she was very sorry for the inconvenience, and would leave a little later. Wu Jin warned the guy that if they come again in the future again, they need to be told that she is only a thief and the young man is not familiar with her. Then, he definitely won't have any problems. She said that she had found a way to pay off her father's debt, no matter what. Shen Kaian stopped the girl and said that she had nothing to do with the money owed by her unscrupulous parent. He asked what she was going to do next, because in such a situation it was difficult to make a reasonable decision. His house is big and there are a lot of free rooms in it, so the guy suggested that she stay here for a while. The young man said that he would have to pay something for this help, because free cheese is only in a mousetrap. Wu Jin was embarrassed and thought that the guy needed to use her body, but he said the price would be much scarier. Shen Kaian dumped a stack of his textbooks in front of the girl and informed her that from now on, she would help him with his homework. In the house of the Sheng family, in the early morning, Hao Chan is actively engaged in sports. A servant approached him and reported that Shen Kaian had been accepted into the elite class of Yanbei High School. The young master thought that his brother took these 500,000 yuan to spend on entertainment, but did not expect that he would do the same trick again with bribing an examiner to enter an elite class. Hao Chan said that Shen Kaian had not learned anything, because even if the ant did not stop resisting, it would be crushed by a human. The next day, at Yanbei High School, the students smoking behind the building were actively discussing Shen Kaian. One of them said that everyone knows about his conflict with Master Hao Tian from the Sheng family. Another suggested that the young master had wanted to do something with him for a long time, but because of the situation, he could not do anything. The leader of this group offered to take the initiative to help Hao Chan, because it will definitely play into their hands in the future. The brown-haired disciple said that after all, Shen Kaian is also from the Sheng family, and this should not be done. But the one on the side of the heir interrupted him, saying that the guy was not worthy to bear his surname at all. After all, he's just a worthless trash who hasn't been able to advance in martial arts even in 7 years. Other students supported their boss and promised to follow him. They had already started coming up with a plan on how to frame Shen Kaian. For example, to force him to drop out of school, then they can go to Hao Tian and ask for a reward. Behind them was the hero himself, who did not expect such suspicious activity from his classmates. All the conspirators were greatly surprised to suddenly see in front of them the one they were discussing. Shen Kaian told them that since they decided to deal with him, they should find a more secluded place, because in broad daylight, and even at school, is not the best choice. The guys informed him that this is one of the few places in the school where there is no video surveillance. Therefore, even if they beat him half to death here, the school won't be able to do anything because of the lack of evidence. The young man was surprised by what was said, and the students thought that he was scared and said that it was his own fault because no one told him to come here. But Shen Kaian meant that since there are no cameras here, he cannot hold back and show everything he is capable of. The hero notably beat and taught a lesson. He was disappointed, because he thought he could train well, but who knew that guys were such weaklings. All three are at an advanced level of martial art, but the young man didn't even break a sweat while fighting with them. He became very bored from such a duel, crawling into the bushes. The students begged to stop beating them, adding that they did not want to harm Shen Kaian. The hero stood in front of them with his head held high, asking if his abusers admired him. And they, like faithful dogs, convinced him that they were really amazed to the core by the guy's skills. Classmates asked to let them go, promising that the next time they see him, they will be bypassed. Shen Kaian will answer that since they are in the same class, it will not be good to avoid him all the time. And he offered the guys another solution. The young man took money from his classmates, but there were not many of them. All three of them had only 5,000 yuan. But they added another blood kai pill to him, quite a valuable medicine. Shen Kaian said that this is certainly not enough, but it will do for now. The next time they meet, they may consider that they are great friends. One of the trio noticed that the young man had suddenly become so strong, to which the boss replied that he had another way to get Shen Kaian to leave the school. The guy's plan was to complain to the director about the hero for beatings. They made a rather pathetic appearance and entered the office. The gang immediately started accusing Shen Kaian of being a scoundrel and a brawler, but they did not notice that the young man himself was already there. He showed the director a recording of their threats and the words of the conspiracy to eliminate the guy. The head of the school forced the Trinity to explain, to which they had to apologize and repent of what they had done. The director strictly ordered the disobedient students to stay in the office and explain why they pretended to be beaten and wanted to frame Shen Kaian. Now they have fulfilled all the whims of the young man. Classmates said they would admit their guilt and asked the guy to let them go already, especially since they had paid him compensation. But Shen Kaian told them not to hurry, because the director said that if the guys want to avoid punishment, then they need to get his forgiveness. He was interrupted by an unknown student who wanted to apologize to the hero on behalf of all classmates. As it turned out, his name is Zhang Kou. He is number 1 in the class. Shen Kaian had not seen him before because the school had specifically created such a rule so that the top 3 students in the class could not attend classes daily. Zhang Kou explained that the 3 bullies are also classmates. They sincerely admit their mistakes, so Shen Kaian should stop bullying them. The first student in the class looked very mysterious and a little intimidating. The hero definitely wouldn't want to go against him. He didn't know him, but most of all he didn't want to mess with him. After all, he might even be one of the bad guys. At lunch, all the students trained at the training base. After all practitioners must study hard to prepare for the monthly exam this weekend. The teacher said that if someone gets into the top 3 of the class, then he will be able to receive a priceless recovery pill as a reward. This motivated all the students to study harder and improve their skills. Shen Kaian thought that the recovery pill was much cooler than the blood Kai pill he was given. The guy needed something that could instantly replenish a large amount of Kai. The hero began to think that he should try to get into the top 3, but relying only on hand-to-hand combat is useless. Suddenly, the young man's thoughts were interrupted by another student. He turned out to be an old acquaintance of Shen Kaian and was very surprised to meet him. The student said that he had heard about the incident with his 3 friends, who had some misunderstandings with Brother Shen. Shen Kaian asked an acquaintance what he needed at all. Along the way, remembering how Zhu Jiatan used to constantly hang around him and did not have his own opinion, because he always agreed with the master. And after Shen Tan took the place of the heir, Zhu Jia immediately joined him. I began to fulfill all his small errands and requests. A former friend had heard that Shen Kaian's hand-to-hand combat level had increased significantly. He also asked for help to sort out some issues related to training. Noticing a free arena, Zhu Jia suggested arranging a duel there to test his strength. The young man replied that his friend might not even be interested in his level, so he decided to ask another classmate to help Zhu Jia. Mentally, Shen Kaian couldn't believe that his old friend was practicing for the first time, but he understood hand-to-hand techniques. The hero called Zhang Kou, brought Zhu Jia to him and said that he had some questions about his technique. The young man assured the elder that his friend wanted to ask for advice. Zhang Kou cordially agreed to the request and told a classmate that if he did not understand, he could always ask for help, because they should always help each other. Zhu Jiatan was upset that Shen Kaian got rid of him. The hero approached the teacher's office and began that while he was studying at this school, his old friend would use cases to create problems for the young man. Therefore, he needs to take a vacation for these days to earn extra strength and pass the monthly exam. Shen Kaian made a pained face in front of the teacher, as if he was very ill, and said that he needed to take 2 days off. During these days, he promised to have a good rest and prepare for the surrender. The teacher gave his permission, believing that he saw how the guy took his homework seriously, and in many parts his ideas were not very bad. The strict teacher hoped that the student had really changed for the better. He gave him a vacation, but on the condition that Shen Kaian would do even more homework, and if he could not cope, then let him not wonder where the young man got such a low score. The stack of tasks was huge and seemed unaffordable. Shen Kaian caught on to the teacher's words about well-done homework, because Wu Jin did it. So, the girl did everything without mistakes. She faithfully fulfilled the terms of the deal. When the guy returned home after school, Wu Jin was sleeping right on the table, surrounded by textbooks and notebooks with assignments. He was surprised that she hadn't woken up yet. Shen Kaian covered the girl with a blanket, saying softly that she was lucky to have such a kind host, otherwise he would have woken her up to make him tea. It was the middle of the night when Wu Jin finally woke up. She noticed that the guy had already returned, but could not figure out where he was. Going outside, the girl saw Shen Kaian practicing the bloody hawk strike technique. She was surprised that he was training at such a late hour. There was a textbook with a description of the technique in front of the young man, and he himself was diligently engaged in training. Wu Jin noticed that the guy's movements looked quite strange. Shen Kaian himself thought that his handwork was different from that bandit. Even though he had just started, he already felt a strong difference. The girl directly gave the guy that his movements were terrible, but then immediately apologized, because she said without thinking. Wu Jin didn't want to laugh at him at all. The young man was only surprised that the young lady had already woken up and said that he was not angry. Shen Kaian asked to name exactly why they are terrible. Wu Jin said that this is just her guess, but the guy's technique seems a little clumsy. She advised the young man to raise his elbows 3 centimeters higher and lower his knees by 2 because it's more convenient right away. Shen Kaian took this pose. The girl only corrected him, telling him to sit a little lower. Wu Jin was sure that the guy was much more comfortable this way, but he replied that he was already at the limit. She encouraged the young man in every possible way, asked him not to give up and hold out a little longer. Already in the morning, Wu Jin woke up and found the guy still training. He was already very tired and exhausted, but he continued to improve his skills and techniques. The girl did not expect that the guy would be so diligent. She had to help him with homework and with training. She was also pretty exhausted. Shen Kaian gave her a salary, asking if she still had the strength. She instantly transformed, became more cheerful and was ready for a new job. The guy began to notice that Wu Jin has a special talent in martial arts, because she can at first glance identify mistakes in the movements of other practitioners based on what is written in the book. If the technique is not harmonious, then the expression of dissatisfaction can be seen in her eyes, and other people cannot notice their own shortcomings. Shen Kaian took a pose resembling a heron. He kept on one leg, bending the other at the knee, and folded his hands in a certain way. The girl happily said that this rack looks nice and cool, and also, the guy should be much more comfortable. Seeing how the lady was trying to repeat his movements, the young man thought that it was a pity that she could only observe and coordinate, because her body was far from balance. Shen Kaian was sorry that such a talent was missing. A week later, the hero reached the first level in the bloody hawk strike technique. A bloody hawk strike, ka, or any other technique is still better than hand-to-hand combat. It has 2 stages that need to be practiced. Finally, the guy will be able to complete the purification of inner kai. Unlike this skill, hand-to-hand combat is just pathetic. Having calculated the sum of the strength of the martial art, which is composed of 2 types of martial arts, the young man will be able to harden the body 3 times, and finally become a master of martial arts of the 3rd level. The main prerequisite for entering the bloodline brain state is to reach the 9th level. An ordinary martial artist would immediately begin to comprehend the bloodline brain state. Improvement requires a lot of time and money. A person with a limited supply of all this will not be able to achieve anything. The same applies to practice. The number of body hardening possibilities is limited, so most masters prefer to comprehend a new state when they reach a suitable level. An extremely small number of geniuses with resources and talents continue to remain at a low level, but there is an exception. The strongest practitioner in history who had the 15th level of physical fitness. The result was not long in coming, and his power began to suppress his own life, and in the end he died. But the main character is not like that, because as long as he has a lot of advice, he can train as much as he wants. At least, that's what the young man thought. However, you can't get everything at once. Shen Kaien's current money was not even enough to reach the full level of hand-to-hand combat. A bloody hawk strike should be much better than hand-to-hand combat even at the 1st level. First, the guy needs to raise the level of this technique to at least average in order to find out if the blood purification pill will withstand such an amount of invited energy. Shen Kaien asked the system to raise the rank of the blood hawk strike to the average level. The hero took a blood purification pill, so he did not feel exhausted at all. He thought that the average level was not enough to waste the entire effect of the medicine. He had money left, so he decided to increase the level even more. Shen Kaien continued to contribute funds for promotion to advanced rank. Finally, the effect of the pill ended and the hero began to feel a little tired in his body. He thought that the pill was not yet able to fully compensate for such an amount of energy consumed. Such a pill is able to organize a full return only when moving from the initial to the advanced level. Shen Kaien said that if he wanted to become stronger, in addition to money, he would need stronger medicines so that he wouldn't have to worry about energy anymore. Now the guy needs to get more pills to restore his strength. Wu Jin ran to the young man, calling him for breakfast. She cooked noodles and added some fried eggs. Shen Kaien promised to come and taste the girl's food soon, asked not to forget to cut him more green onions. The only thought in his mind was to pass the monthly exam. In Yanbei High School, there is a rule according to which a monthly exam is conducted in each class. The essence of the exam is simple. It's an ordinary fight in the arena. Initially, each student receives a rating card and the winner exchanges the rating with the loser. Therefore, students with a low rating deliberately choose the strong ones with a higher one. This is how the rating is formed. The exam host informed everyone that Zhang Kaoyu and Liang Ming are absent from today's exam, so the rating of all those present rises by 2. The students started saying that Zhu Jiatan was now in the first place. They just wanted to gain combat experience with a strong opponent. Zhu Jia thought that they were just a bunch of fools with no strength. He genuinely did not understand their desire to ask someone to tighten up their abilities. Shen Kaien was told that according to the rules, his rating would be the lowest since he had just entered this class. Everyone hoped that he would behave honestly and not become the same as before. The guy promised that he would try his best, and the gossips around began to think who he bribed again to win. One of them said that they should remember not to accept the young man's money. The person standing next to him noticed that Shen Kaien should not be underestimated, because he heard how he defeated Gao Bo and 2 others a couple of days ago, and his hand-to-hand combat skills are at a perfect level. 15 minutes later, a guy named Wu Dai Lu won, and the rating remained the same. Zhu Jiachan was perplexed that no one had challenged him yet, because while Zhang Kaoyun is not there, everyone should try to take first place in the ranking. The students began to talk among themselves that while Zhang Kao is on the podium, everyone can try to take this place because he fights with dignity and knows how to stop during. And Zhu Jia is too cruel and ruthless towards his rivals. A smug young man standing in the first place said that all the people standing outside the arena are just garbage that does not deserve his attention. But he added that he was not trying to offend anyone. In response to this, Shen Kaien said that even more trash is the one who judges him without even seeing him in the ring during the battle. The hero with the 40th rank challenged the guy with the 1st. All the students were surprised by such courage. After all, Zhu Tan has a perfect level of martial art. Shen Kaien will not be easy, having only an average. The main character was cheerful and full of energy. He was serious about gaining the upper hand. The young man said that today everyone will find out who the real master of hand-to-hand combat is. The opponents moved from their seats. Shen Kaien shouted about his mountain-shattering strike. Zhu Jia said that he was acting too slowly. But suddenly the opponent flew at him from behind, attacking with a bloody hawk strike. It was a mind-blowing technique that helped defeat the proud Zhu Qian in one blow. He just sat down pathetically on the floor, spitting out his own blood. The loser could not recover for a long time and realized the situation. The judge announced that Shen Kaien had been promoted to first place. The students couldn't believe how the hero was able to defeat Zhu Jiatian with one blow. They recognized the Blood Hawk technique, but did not understand how the young man had upgraded it to such a rank, because the attack power was destructive. The students said that Shen Kaiyan had mastered not only the basic technique of hand-to-hand combat, but also other martial arts. They were shocked that he had not even reached the first level of body hardening, but was already practicing 2 martial skills. The students began to think that with such skills, only Zhang Keoyu, who was temporarily absent, could defeat him. No one could believe that the former bad student was able to take first place in the class. Unexpectedly, Shen Kaiyan succumbed to his classmate Wei Pan, making him the first in the ranking. The people couldn't believe that Wei Pan would be able to defeat the guy on his own, because he had the lowest rank and he managed to barely reach only the initial level. Other students could not accept such an outcome. Everyone wanted to be on a pedestal. Therefore, one of them easily won against the weak Wei Pan, but he was immediately stopped by Shen Kaiyan, who took away the first place card and again gave it to the previous owner. So, the guy developed a tactic, thanks to which he wanted to earn more money. Wei Pan simply pays Shen Kaiyan for a place at the top of the ranking, and the young man did not dare to refuse. And Zhu Tian was struggling hard from the last place to his rightful first. He was just challenging everyone, still devaluing the strength of the other students. Shen Kaiyan intervened in this, offering the guys his service to raise the rank. Thus, the young man, whenever Zhu Tian challenges someone and wins, offers them his help in regaining their level. An hour later, on the posted rating, it was written that Zhu Jiatian was in 40th place and Shen Kaiyan was in 39th.